Denosa in the Northwest has postponed a planned sit-in at the Provincial Department of Health head office in Mahikeng. The sit-in was set to take place today. The union says more than 200 graduate nurses are unemployed after undergoing a recruitment process, and Denosa wants the department to hire them. Denosa's Deputy Provincial Chairperson, Mziwa Keseleke, explains the reasons behind the postponement.
The second thing that we agreed on is a process to be followed in terms of making sure that those nurses are appointed. They are to meet management today to agree on the implementation and how long it should take. After the meeting with management, they will then call us today to update us and give us a final date of implementation. And then the other thing that we agreed with, that we then have to meet after 5 days to give each other progress in terms of how far they are, what are the stumbling blocks that they are experiencing.
In other news, the case against the four men accused of killing anti-apartheid activist Cafius Nyoka 37 years ago has been remanded in the Boksburg Magistrate Court to the 26th of April for substantive application for postponement. Peter Snander was apprehended at the OR Tambo International Airport in April this year, but was subsequently released on a warning. Snander will stand trial alongside 3 others facing charges of conspiracy to commit murder, and defeating the ends of justice. Joost Venter, an associate at Weber Wenzel, which is the law firm representing the family, says they are satisfied that the NPA has managed to secure a trial date.
The pain that the family has had to endure is knowing who the people are that killed and the police officers that killed their brother 37 years ago. The accused has been known to the family for the longest period of time. So the fact that justice wasn't served in 88 and 89 when an inquest was held, and they've had to wait a very long time for that. In 97, the family appeared before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. There was no applications for amnesty. It took the accused, the first accused, Mr. Mare, until 2009 to confess and to a journalist about the killing.
And lastly, a 5.5 magnitude earthquake has struck Taiwan's eastern county of Hualien. There are no immediate reports of damage, and the quake also shook buildings in the capital, Taipei. Earlier this month, at least 14 people died in Hualien after it was struck by a 7.2 magnitude quake. Taiwan lies near the junction of 2 tectonic plates and is prone to earthquakes. Recapping the top story at 3, ANC Secretary-General Fiki Lembalula has accused the judge in the trademark case of focusing on politics rather than facts pertaining to the ownership of Mkonto Wesizwe. This after the High Court in Durban dismissed the ANC's case on the basis that the party did not contest the matter at the inception of the registration of the MK party. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Springboks to tackle Wales twice in 2024. FIFA bans another PSL club and Nadal to play for Team Europe at Lever Cup. More details at 3:30.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105 FM in Polokwane. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Indeed, fingers on the pulse. What's your pulse rate like? What's the national pulse rate like? And as always, there's so many issues that develop over the weekend, and naturally, I mean, all we talk about at the moment is the elections and who you're voting for and why you're voting for them and what impact the policies of these parties has on your choice of vote. And perhaps, maybe let me just throw that out to you. And I know we've discussed it before, but clearly, there's no way we're going to just have one conversation about the elections and then have another discussion on the 30th of May. It's not going to happen like that. So if you have a thought about not so much a thought, I mean, this is what I want. Are you able to share with me, with us, with the nation, some of the insights that you and your family have around the type of conversations that will help you decide or help each one decide who they're going to vote for and why. So you don't have to even mention the parties, but if you want to, that's fine. But what I'm talking about, like, is it over breakfast, lunch, supper? Is it over a fireside chat? Is it over WhatsApp groups, like seems to be the case with every one of us? And what are the conversations that take place? And what do different people from your family, and again, you don't have to mention names, what do they say about, like, no, don't go to that party because, like, no, or we must look at that party, or you must vote for this party. So I want to know, the type of conversations, the fireside chats that you all have around the elections. So how are you going to tell me? Well, you can call in. In fact, you can call in to 086 000 2032. You can WhatsApp in voice note or text form 0614 104 107, 0614 104 107. And as you know, the 104 107 suggests that we are 104 107 nationwide, because that's where we are. But you can also follow SAFM Radio on streaming live. Just go to the SAFM website or SABC Plus as well on the app. Download the app and you can listen to us wherever you are, as well as live on SAFM Radio on Facebook, as well as on the X platform. And you can also connect with us on YouTube. So just basically, in all ways, we have you covered. The important hashtag to use is the National Pulse. And I'll tell you what, it's really great if you, as always, if you send us a picture, you can WhatsApp it, but also you can tweet it out. Tweet out to the National Pulse a picture of where you are listening to the station right now. Name and the area or the suburb or the town, wherever you may be around the country. But let's think about who, in fact, you would be, the conversations that you as a family have around the election. My name is Ashraf Garda. Wonderful to have you part of the show, and always value the great feedback and the fact that you and I are part of this growing tribe that sort of moves in the same direction, trying to get a sense and feel of the National Pulse. Well, I'll tell you what, talking about a feel for the National Pulse, what do you make of the Durban High Court ruling in favour of the Umkhonto we Sizwe party, dismissing the ANC's case around trademarks and imaging? What do you think about it? Well, I'll tell you what, let's talk about it in a moment.
We are not comparing two logos, the ANC flag and MK. We are challenging the trademark that has been seceded.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So we're going to get two reactions regarding that issue. We'll get the MK party spokesperson coming up in a moment. But to get where we are, as you know, the ANC, in fact, at one stage took the MK party to court around the IEC, around, in fact, even the use of the name MK party in the elections. Well, they lost that one. Then was the imaging of former President of the ANC, Jacob Zuma. That one was thrown out. Now it's about the naming and the logo, the imaging. You know, just think about it. If I say CNA, you have a certain imaging of what CNA looks like. So there was an issue around imaging and trademark rights. Well, that one now has been thrown out by the court. So what does all that mean? Okay, so we'll get a reaction from the MK party spokesman in a moment. We thought, let's get to the engine room of the ANC. Fikile Mbulula is the Secretary General of the ANC, and in reaction, this is what he said.
We are not comparing two logos, the ANC flag and MK. We are challenging the trademark that has been seceded to the ANC. It's ours. The judge does not compare the logos, does not address that issue. He addresses issues that were not ventilated in court. That's what he has done in terms of the judgment that he has given to you. Go and check. And those who are in court as well, go and check that. Instead, he agrees with our opponents that they made a cogent case about the fact that we wasted the time of court and the matter does not actually belong there. On the basis of that, punitive measures are actually granted to us. We will appeal all of those in terms of the court above, and we appreciate the fact that in the judgment, the issue that you are addressing, he has granted us the right to appeal. That's what he has done. So if you read the judgment and you understand, you say, are we going to appeal to the same court? We will decide, but he has granted us the right to appeal already. Meaning, I no longer want to deal with this matter, go and see for yourself somewhere else. You know, I'm out of this, and so on. So the issue of the trademark and Umkhonto we Sizwe goes beyond an election to us. The issue of the election and Umkhonto party of Jacob Zuma contesting, we left that issue in Mangaung. Even though we believed that we still had a strong case, we left it there. So Jacob Zuma and his party are on the ballot. So the issue that we contesting Mr. Zuma, we cannot contest a person who has made up his mind about where he wants to go to. He wants to form a party. He wants to bring the ANC below 50% for whatever political reasons. He has outlined that when he launched the party on the 16th of December. So we're very clear. How do you stand against a person who has made up his mind?
Okay, that's the voice and the words of the ANC's Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula. It's a bit confusing if you ask me about, to go to the end is like, well, the judge has already said, go and appeal. I don't need to waste too much time about this, suggesting like, go and get it somewhere else. I think that's simplistic, because the reality is that's the legal situation that gives you the chance to appeal, if anything. But the issue that was also mentioned was it's not the logo, it's a trademark. Will you tell me what the differences are between the two? And as someone who hosted a marketing show, I'm trying to understand where the overlap doesn't exist and what that really means for the ANC in this case, as certainly for the MK party. So that's the voice of the words of the ANC official position. You have an opinion on that one? Let me know. You can message, text, WhatsApp us right away and share your thoughts, okay? You know that. 0614 104 107. Now, this will help you with an answer, if you want to get the thoughts of the MK position. The MK party spokesperson is in Tlamulo Ndlela, right? Thank you for your time and thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you, right. So, a judgment was passed. B, the ANC Secretary General pronounced on that, as you've heard in the soundbite we've just played. Firstly, what do you make of what he said?
Mbalula is a lazy thinker. He's an ambulance chaser. He's clutching at straws. He's trying to articulate laws he doesn't understand. What do you expect? Such is the nature with the incompetence that is rife within the ANC leadership. And the mere fact that, they took on his little project and they actually agreed and supported him speaks volumes of them as leadership in the first place. So these people are not ready to govern. It's clear that they should be stepping aside, which is their use of words.
Oh, no, but wait, I want to just hold it. I don't want to talk about who's stepping aside beyond it. I'm looking at pronouncements around the issue. Now, you made the point that he's a lazy thinker. So in the context of the application to have the MK logo and imaging dismissed, why do you say that the SG of the ANC is a lazy thinker? What has he said that gets you to think that?
Yeah, but I've said it previously, if you recall. I said he's been keeping on duty. And then he gets an epiphany to all of a sudden want to launch all sorts of cases against us, which are very short-sighted in their nature. So, we've always said that these frivolous cases will not yield any positive outcome for them. And exactly as I've said has been the outcome.
Okay, what is your interpretation of today's court ruling?
Well, here's the reality. We're a political party, Ashraf, and the logo, they talk about trademark infringement. The trademark, we're not trading. We're not using this logo to trade. And as you've seen in terms of our presentation in court a couple of weeks ago, a month or so. For him to even mention trademark, Mbalula doesn't understand what trademark means. If you were to ask him what infringement means, I'm sure he'd fall flat in his face trying to explain that. So, and then him now just listening to his little speech and trying to articulate something he doesn't understand. I mean, really. So
okay, but what I'm asking you is, what do you understand by the ruling? What does that ruling allow the MK party, or what does it not allow the MK party now in the build-up to a big event which is a month away?
No, it allows us to continue, positively and, with confidence that, we are on the right path. As far as we're concerned, we were never perturbed about this case in the first place. As I mentioned to you, the real landmark cases were the first two, which spoke to us participating in the elections. The second one being President Zuma being on the candidate list and effectively on the ballot and facing on the ballot. So our reading is exactly that, and I've said it continuously, that we're going to win this and we're comfortable. We're going to get into this election. This logo is going to stay. This is a logo we believe of our ancestors. It's the spear of the nation, and that's Umkhonto we And we continue, on our journey of getting a two-third majority and changing this country.
How significant, symbolically and maybe in practical terms, is it that the MK party can be allowed to use a logo that the ANC felt was their logo, their trademark, although I've heard Fikile Mbalula suggesting, which it's not an image, it's trademark. I mean, I really see it as one as the same anyway, but fine, right? How significant is it that your party now will be allowed to use that? What I'm saying to you is that if they were not allowed to use that, I'm just maybe looking at an Orlando Pirates example. If the famous skull and crossbones of the Orlando Pirates team was not allowed, how damaging would that be to the Orlando Pirates' morale? So if I then extend that to your situation, is this a huge victory, or is it just a nice victory to have, but it wouldn't have changed your election plan and election outcome?
This is a spiritual process. We knew that this was going to be the outcome. Let me start there. It's going to change the will of the people, no. People resonate with Umkhonto we hence you've been saying the resounding response we had. So the logo is important, naturally. Their logo is above the head, where it's a spear that's thrown. Ours is close combat, which is below. And that's exactly how we're engaging with this, close combat. And we've been very tactical about, our approach, our strategy in terms of even these cases and how we're actually going to ensure that Umkhonto is well positioned in the eye of the voter, in the conscience of the voter. So, yes, the logo is very important, naturally so, because it represents, what we wanting to achieve here on the messaging that we're trying to put across to our people.
And does your potential, and I say potential because they haven't yet voted for you until they do vote, right? Do your supporters, have they warmed to that logo, or do they see the symbolism around it that you've just suggested?
Look, I mean, it has become an important element of our campaign. There's no doubt about that. That's how we are recognized. The mere fact that our posters and our banners can be ripped off in a DA-led municipality in Oudtshoorn is a clear confirmation that this logo and this face in President Zuma is a clear threat. So. We see it internally as important, and as much as our adversaries also see it as equally important because it's a threat. So it's important because it resonates with our history, it resonates with what we want to achieve, it reminds the people of where we're coming from, and the fact that there's a lot more that we need to change and how we need to engage is by association with what we stand for, which is change.
Okay, the ANC has already indicated that they've been allowed leave to appeal and they will take it up. How much of an issue is that for you? In again, where, I would think every day, every hour matters for all parties, including the ANC, in the countdown to May 29.
We'll be in government.
You'll be in government.
By the time that happens, President Zuma will be president of this country. We're not worried about frivolous things. We focus on changing people's lives. We're focused. Mbalula should be talking about changing people's lives. He should be talking about free education. He should be talking about giving people homes. He should be
okay, but no, wait, I'm not really worried about his campaign. I'm talking about the sidetracking issue of the fact that you may have to again take this issue and defend and appeal. That's what I'm referring to. Whether he does a good job or not is another whole conversation completely.
Yeah, but I mean, look, let him go and appeal. If the courts allow him to appeal, let him go and appeal. That's not our focus, Ashraf. I mean, our focus here is we're campaigning to ensure that we get a two-thirds majority. We're not worried about frivolous sideshows.
Okay.
Bringing to us.
Got that.
They can go and appeal. We're not worried. We're focusing on what we need to focus on, which is changing the country by getting a two-thirds majority come to an end.
So the last two parts are important, not just winning an election with 50+1, but a two-thirds majority is what the MK party are focusing on. And will they get there? We'll find out. Appreciate your time. The MK party spokesperson, Ntlamulo and Leila, thank you for your time. As always, much appreciated. But there you are. Certainly got you thinking as an audience. So, talk to me about it. Like, what do you feel about this issue? What's your pulse rate like? What's the national pulse rate like on this issue between a person who, is he still part of the ANC? He hasn't been suspended, right? You know that. We're talking about former President Jacob Zuma. What do you feel about this issue between the ANC that was once headed by Jacob Zuma and a party that now uses his image, that will use his image on the ballot sheet as well, who effectively now heads up that party? And as per the party spokesperson, very clear that he would be, Jacob Zuma that is, would be the president of the country once again on an MK party ticket. Your thoughts, your comments, 086 000 2032, WhatsApp, text or voice notes, 0614 104 107. And if you are tweeting out, tagging SFM Radio on the X platform, use the hashtag #TheNationalPulse.
Keeping up with your TV license balance inquiries is now simpler than ever. No more waiting in queues. No more phone calls. Just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 and secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
For 120 years, Rhodes University has shaped history. From Sir George Corey's pioneering 62 conversations capturing the early history of the Eastern Cape, to the first email to be sent in South Africa, and now leading the way in nanotechnology. Rhodes University is more than an educational institution. We are a legacy in motion. Be part of the evolving legacy. Rhodes University, where leaders learn.
Lindelani ladies are on a massive search for 3 points, but TS Galaxy ladies say they will travel back from eThekwini with a song of jubilance. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the queens of the beautiful game, Lindelani Ladies FC versus TS Galaxy Ladies FC, on Sunday 28 April at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
I tell you what, if life is so confusing for you, where you now see the former president, Jacob Zuma, now contesting an election with another party having not resigned, well, the one party, and you say, has there been another example of that? Well, here's one that will really confuse you. So the story is that Prince Harry is an American citizen. Okay, that should tell you something. Let's try and understand all of this, because I'm battling with a political analyst and PhD candidate based at the University of Dundee in Scotland. It's Musa Mdunge. Musa, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon to you and to your listeners.
Right, so yeah, you are a member who would be in line for the throne ordinarily is now an American citizen. I've given the example of Jacob Zuma, once of the ANC. What do you make of the story?
Well, one, he has received his U.S. residency, so not that necessarily he's a U.S. citizen, because that would in fact then put his legal status, particularly as a member of the royal family, and the kind of protections and privileges that he has in jeopardy. Already, if you think about the fact that since his move, there has been a push by not only the royal family, but the Home Office, whether from Boris Johnson until under Rishi Sunak, to reduce the kind of security he would receive when he's in the UK. And that boils down to the fact that he's no longer a working royal. And as much as Prince Harry is a Counselor of State, technically, he would be able to fill in his father's shoes, King Charles, on matters to protect the monarchy, or in times where he's unable to exercise, his authority. But in this particular case, the fact that, two of the king's siblings have been added to the list shows that relations between the king as well as his son are not moving in the direction that either one of them would probably want. And unfortunately for Prince Harry, this move does put his status, his popularity in the UK in jeopardy.
But I mean, does he care if it's in jeopardy? I would think not.
I think he does. I think he does. The very fact that he has waged so many legal battles against various newspapers and news organizations means that he really cares about his reputation, particularly in the United Kingdom. In fact, if you look at the recent YouGov polling that tracks the popularity of the royals, Prince Harry scores a 68% unlikability rating of about 68%. In fact, he's far unpopular than even Camilla, the Queen Consort, whom, if you know the history of Prince Harry, Princess Diana, the royals, was at some point the most hated woman. So the fact that he scores under that tells you the gravity of his unpopularity in the UK. He certainly cares about his image in the UK because fundamentally this is home, but also he has certain charities that he continues to be connected to as a patriot. And so his unpopularity impacts his brand and fundamentally impacts these organizations that are associated with him and their ability to raise funds. And that's the challenge for Prince Harry. It's what does it do to his credibility and ability to raise funds? That's why he worries so much, and that's why he has pursued so many legal battles.
But I mean, you say he really cares. How do we know he cares? I mean, what has he pronounced publicly that suggests that he really does care? Keeping in mind that he's ambivalent, right? He's there. He's not in regular office as you would normally expect the other royals to do. He's living in another place on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. In many ways, him and his family have built a future elsewhere.
One of the things that I would say would drive me to say that is one, he continues to talk about the royal family, continues to speak about his experience. You'll recall that he wrote the book Spare, which is quite a scathing record of the royal family, but also the current cancer diagnosis of both King Charles and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, would have certainly made Prince Harry rethink, try to get closer to his father. You know, royal journalists who cover the royal family have stated that in actual fact there have been some overtures to improve relations, particularly given King Charles's cancer diagnosis. But you know, at this point, I think the matter is still hot. The fact that Prince William and Prince Harry do not get along. In fact, one would argue that their relationship is more tense than that of King Charles and and Prince Harry, and that factors, right, because it kind of puts the king in the middle between his successor and his second son. And unfortunately, given that Prince William Wallace sent to the throne, regard and focus has been given to him and his family. And again, the very fact that he will no longer act as a counselor of state in the most official sense of the matter means in the royal machinations, there's a thinking to say that this man is no longer going to come back. We might as well move on and deal with the core royal family, which is Prince William, his wife, and the three kids.
Well, I mean, here's the last thing, and we're on to news time, so 30 seconds. I mean, you're speaking to us from Scotland, so it gets me thinking about that movie called The Last King of Scotland, which is another whole person completely, you know that. But I mean, I think the Scots' position with royalty is very different to what the rest of England and maybe other countries feel, right? But here's the point. How much of an issue is this for the longevity of the royal family? And you've got 30 seconds.
I don't think it really is an issue here. I think that the British people have come to the conclusion that the focus, who they consider as the royal family, is the King, Queen Camilla, as well as Prince William. And so in many ways, the fact that the core royal family has done well since the ascension of King Charles, in fact, he remains quite popular. His level of popularity almost peaking at the same level as Queen Elizabeth shows that the royal family have played this very well and in many ways aided, of course, by the British press, which still has a huge influence over the populace. If you think of media culture in the UK.
Okay, that's where you're going to leave me. Thank you for your time, Musa Dunge. Certainly get us thinking about, I wouldn't say the last king of Scotland, that's clearly not the case, the last prince maybe of the royal family living in the USA, or the first of that sort, isn't it? Strange world we live in. More to come on the ANC MK issue, and I'll take your calls too. Let's get the news headlines now. Just gone 3:30 with Eva Chipa.
Thanks, Ashraf. The new news making headlines for this hour. Limpopo's Health MEC, Popi Ramathuba, says they have sent 3 samples of the bus crash victims who perished on their way to St. Egnazet in Moria to Pretoria for further DNA processing. Ramathuba says out of 72 samples that were collected, only 3 were not identifiable through DNA. In other news, ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has accused the judge in the trademark case of focusing on politics rather than facts pertaining to the ownership of Mkonto Sizwe. This after the High Court in Durban dismissed the ANC's case on the basis that the party did not contest the matter at the inception of the registration of the MK party. And lastly, Dr. Tlaleng Mofokeng, the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to health, says the war in Gaza has been a war on the right to health and underlying determinants of health. Dr. Mofokeng was addressing the media at the UN in Geneva today. I'll be back at 4 for SFM News. I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And for the traffic, there's quite a heavy backlog on Pretoria's N1 South. This is a collision scene just after Rigel Avenue. The traffic pushing back through towards the Linwood Road. Now, I'm just getting an update suggesting that has been cleared in the last minute or so. So if you are stuck on the M1 from Linwood down to Rigel, it should be an improving situation by the minute. Crossing to Durban, the N2 South, that's under pressure as it is on a daily basis on the off-peak part of the day from Inanda Road down through to Spaghetti Junction. Absolutely jam-packed through the roadworks. And Cape Town, a bottleneck on the N2 outbound passing Khayelitsha. It's a crash on the side of the highway at Muway. All lanes are open, but traffic is pushing back through the R300. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, let's talk sport. It's Monday afternoon.
Well, we start things off with rugby this afternoon. A very good afternoon to you. Well, the Springboks have confirmed their year-end tests against Scotland, England and Wales to complete their 2024 season. The test against England at Twickenham on the 16th of November had already been confirmed at an earlier date, while 2 more year-end tests against Scotland and Wales were added to the roster. Now, the world champions will open their year-end tour against Scotland in Edinburgh on the 10th of November and conclude the season against Wales in Cardiff on the 23rd of November. The Boks will also face the Welsh at Twickenham to open their season on the 22nd of June. Then moving on to football action, SuperSport United coach Gavin Hunt says that their problem at the club is scoring goals. They have now managed just 1 win in 10 matches, and Matsatsanza have suffered a major blow in their race to finish as runners-up in the DStv Premiership. This is after their 2-0 defeat at home against Chippa United. Now, they face a struggling Kaizer Chiefs this weekend, with Hunt identifying their biggest weakness in the poor run.
Yeah, I'll worry about that in this week. We got to just try and get a team together and try and get, settle a bit more. And you can go to training and we can work on things, but it's at the bottom line is, we got to score. Big chances, don't score, and that's it.
Well, then just keeping up with the African players in Europe, Senegalese Idrissa Gueye and South Africa's Lyle Foster ended Premier League goal droughts at the weekend while helping Everton and Burnley to victories. Gueye scored his first goal for Everton since 2017 as they defeated Nottingham Forest 2-0 at Goodison Park, and Foster ended a 9-match drought with the third goal for Burnley in a 4-1 win over bottom side Sheffield United, and it was his first time that he scored since December. In tennis, world number 6, Casper Ruud defeated Stefanos Tsitsipas 7-5 and 6-3 to win the Barcelona Open. Tsitsipas saved 2 break points in the 6th game to give himself a chance of a comeback, but could not match Ruud's energy after draining 3-set matches in his run to the final.
I wasn't playing my best tennis this week in Barcelona. I was still able to get away and get to the finals. I felt like in my quarterfinals match I was literally a point away of losing, and throughout the whole week I didn't feel like my shots had the same effect as they did in Monte Carlo, and that was something that I did feel very concerned about.
Still staying with tennis, Rafa Nadal will play the Lever Cup later this year. The 37-year-old has struggled with injuries for the last 2 years and has said that he expects to retire after the 2024 season. This will be the 22 times Grand Slam champion's fourth appearance at the three-day team tournament, which pits 6 top men's players from Europe against 6 of their counterparts from the rest of the world. And just rounding things up with the women in sports, a young cyclist by the name of Madison Bateson won the 40-kilometer off-road Qual Tour Durban. Now, the race saw Bateson riding the 40-kilometer for the first time to produce the shock of the day when she edged out 2023 winner Sandton City Cycle Nation's Joanna van der Winkel. And that race moves on to Tar, with the main event moving on to a 110-kilometer road race, and it's taking place predominantly on the M4 between Moses Mabhida Stadium and Mloti. On that note,
you know what's interesting, just talking about women in sport, you know, for a long period of time, maybe besides tennis that comes to mind, like every other sport is like you play cricket, you play rugby, you play football, and then by the way, there's some women who are fiddling with these other sports, like the same names. Exactly. So tennis would be equal. But there's a growing sense now that women in sport are on an equality.
Slowly but surely.
And I think that's great.
Slowly but surely we're getting there. But I like the fact that now they're becoming more confident. I think we are becoming more confident in terms of just trying whatever that we want to do. I think we still just need to get there in terms of being paid for what we're passionate about, because now we're at a point where you play the sport, but you still have to go to a 9 to 5 because it's not going to support.
And that must change. Well, I think a good example of that that deals very much with branding and marketing and acceptance in society of their team. So I think Banyana showed that during the African Cup of Nations, the women's tournament, where at that time watching them, it didn't even matter whether they were male or female. They represented your country because they provided excellence and people watched them. In the same way, you would watch Tatiana Schoonmaker. She's got a new surname, I think it is, right?
Smith.
Yeah. But meaning at that stage, you didn't say, oh, she's a female. Like, she's an athlete that represents South Africa.
And she does exceptionally
so you just follow
well.
that. So when you get to that level, then I think the sense of equality and equal money, I think, is particularly important.
Absolutely.
So there needs to be people that has to drive the issue of women's branding in sport nationwide, and excellence must go with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. On that note, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour for SAFM Sport. I'm Dumi Kapele.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.2 FM in Thohoyandou. Call us on 086 000 2032.
So I'll tell you what, we're going to get another take on the ANC versus MK issue coming up shortly. But we know it's such an important issue. We've certainly invited you to call in, and people are WhatsApping in text or voice note form, and continue doing that. 0614 104 107. What do you make of this latest challenge, ANC versus the MK party, and how big is that challenge going to be in the election come 29 May, right? But also you can call in. Many have done so. Make a note of this number. Save this number permanently. 086 000 2032. Right. Let's get your thoughts. Temba in Gqeberha. Good chatting to you, Temba. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you?
Right. Good indeed. Right. What do you want to get off your chest?
Man, Ashraf, I think listening to Mbalula this afternoon, the quick one here, is I think he's advised correctly this time around, but it's unfortunately late, because he makes a statement that he's not contesting the party, the establishment of the party and the logo of MK. He's establishing the legacy of what is known as MK, which is the legacy of the ANC. But if you go to the court, the issues that were contended, and the judges went into those matters asking questions, but the lawyers made the mistake of trying to prove their claim by citing that the population or the voters will be confused. The voters can easily be swayed if this party is allowed to continue to use this trademark. Now, when they were shown the two logos, they said, no, we're not contesting that now. But what are you contesting? If the logos are different, are you contesting the spiritual element of the revolution that nobody else
But for this purpose, they're contesting the trademark. That means it's got to do with imaging.
They've not defined it. What is this that they are contesting? Those images are different. They are quite different. It's just that the other part is called Umkhonto Wesizwe and written differently with a U and a smaller case or lower case and the other U capital letter. But the point that I'm going to, can you imagine if the ANC goes on to Constitutional Court and the Constitutional Court rules in their favor after the 29th of May? The Umkhonto Wesizwe would have been voted by whatever number of voters. Umkhonto Wesizwe would have been a formally established party and representative in parliament. How would that Constitutional Court reverse that? How would you...
Yeah, you mean the gains would have been made already anyway from the MK party itself?
The gains would have been made and consciously people would have voted for what is known as Umkhonto Wesizwe. How do you then go back to that party and say, change your name?
I'm sure.
Voters.
Well, I'm sure that question is being asked by everybody concerned, okay? Both parties, I'm sure about that. Thanks for that call, Themba. Got us thinking. Appreciate it. Let's get further comment. In fact, there's a series of voice notes that have come through, and I'll pick out some text as well just now. But let's play some voice notes.
Mine is very simple and very straightforward. I would definitely vote for EFF because their policies they actually make sense in such a way that if you go to their EFF manifesto policies, they actually speaks to the poor. And it speaks to the things that EFF will do when they're in power, more especially in job creation. So I would definitely vote for them. Thank you.
Okay, that's who you're voting for. In fact, my question to you was what are the conversations that take place at your family gatherings? Like, who's saying what about what, and where do they, what for them are the big issues, and what are the vehicles they're using? Is it WhatsApp? Do they sit together? Do you guys argue with each other? And that's what I want to know, like human stories around the election. Do you have like a person sitting over lunch and one is wearing a DA outfit and the other one is wearing like a DA top and the other one's wearing an ANC top and the third person's wearing an EFF top? That sort of thing, right? Yeah, if that's the case, I certainly want to know. Here's another voice note.
Butigodlo from Tawing Enlekale Machonisa. People shouldn't forget that the reason why Zuma was the president of the country, it was because of the ANC, and that people love ANC. That the majority of the people in this country thinks that ANC is the rightful political party to govern this country. That if Zuma was a member of any political party, to those political parties that are at the parliament, Zuma wouldn't have been the president of this country. Therefore, I don't think that even if Umkhonto Wesizwe could use millions of names that the ANC is having, that they could ever make any difference. The ANC will win the elections come 29 May 2024. I thank you.
Okay, people have strong opinions. There's another one from Moku saying leaders always come and go, but the supporters of citizens will always be there. Ramaphosa's time will end, as well as Zuma's time will end. What will remain a question in our minds is the purpose why their parties were formed. Why were their parties formed? I don't know. You better tell me. Let's talk about we continue having this conversation, MK versus ANC, after this.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, in the past, in my family, voting ANC was part of the tradition. But I have decided that as a head of the family, we do away with that tradition and we adopt voting EFF. So there is no way that my family are going to vote ANC. I've convinced them, all of them. The only person that was difficult to convince was my grandmother. But now we've managed to convince her that EFF is the only party to vote for as a family. Bob, Cape Town.
Oh, I'm just imagining you and your whole family and you trying to convince everybody, and then the granny, the gogo of the family, the matriarch is like, I'm not convinced. And what did you do to convince her? I'm trying to imagine that situation. But please bring them on. I want to hear more family election stories, these type of human stories around the election and how we try and convince each other which way we should be going, if any, right? Okay, let's get another take on the issue of the ANC versus the MK party. My guest is Professor Musa Qulu, who is the founder of the Indonsa Yesizwe think tank. Prof. Qulu, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and thank you to have you back. Been missing you for quite a number of years.
Well, if you had to WhatsApp me earlier, I would have come back much quicker, but I get your point. Thank you. Much appreciated, okay? Right. Yeah. Okay, so, I mean, you have an interesting take outside the issues of the trademarks. You have an issue around archive material and history that you want to share. Go ahead and tell us.
Yeah, no, there is no doubt from a heritage perspective that both the name Mkhonto weSizwe and the logo is the brainchild of the ANC. There is simply no doubting that. And this is what happened in terms of intellectual property management. In NPO registered the trademark of the design. Then later, then they owned the trademark. Then later, including earlier this year, that ownership was ceded to the ANC. Mm-hmm. So the ANC is actually the rightful owner by law, and also in terms of culture and heritage. It's a very rich heritage. You know, you cannot in politics around the globe, you cannot claim anything in politics if you don't have a history. Of doing things, and you don't have a past that you can look at. So it's understandable why Jacob Zuma is trying his best to cling on to the history of the ANC, even though he is no longer in the ANC. It's understandable. He's trying to come up with something. Otherwise, their history starts on the 16th of December. And there's nothing to offer.
But here's the thought, right? So if you're saying there's no doubt, according to you, that the trademark, the logo, the whole history of Mkhonto weSizwe belongs to the ANC, then when we talk about trademark as we speaking now in court, right? What is your understanding of what is a trademark, just so that we understand it clearly?
A trademark will usually come in the form of a design. And for example, if you look at the tin of fish outside of it, it will have something that makes you to associate that name with that particular type of fish. That's a trademark. In other words, when you go to the trading places in economics, by showing that logo becomes associated with the product or the brand or the message that you carry. Mm-hmm. Now, if you disrespect...
So an example, and I'll throw in a name, the swoosh, the tick of that sports company's logo. I don't have to even mention the name. Everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. That's a good example of a powerful trademark. It doesn't have a name, but the image is that powerful that it links directly to, in that case, Nike, right? And that's what you're talking about.
Exactly. I'm talking about that. And it is a duty of responsible citizens and traders and everyone to respect the trademarks of others. Otherwise, you remember when China started disrespecting trademarks of others, then their products came here to South Africa and people called them Hong Kong and all of those things. So it's not the original.
Okay.
It's by law, but also by common law.
But in the light of what you believe, what then do you make of today's court ruling?
I don't know. I think that there are aspects that the lawyers of the ANC did not present to court adequately. You know, when it comes to law and presentation at court, it's sometimes a lot of about the facts, but also a lot of about how you present the facts that will make your case. I think possibly that's why they were easily given the right to appeal. The problem, if it's not appealed, Ashraf, you're going to create a culture where people don't respect the property of other people. They'll come to your house and say, no, you were away on a holiday, now we're taking this house. Or they come to your farm and so on. It's a very complex and serious matter which must be resolved by the Constitutional Court. in this country ultimately.
But so here's the final thing. Are you saying that the ANC's case around the trademark that's being, allegedly used now by the MK party, they have a solid case, but the way they're presenting their solid case has been found wanting, and that is why they are in the situation that they are in right now?
Case very, very solid, but I think I listened a little bit to the lawyers when they're presenting, and I didn't understand why they had omitted to get that NGO on board, for example, to present to the court as well as friends of the court or any other thing like that. Because even when the MK party started doing whatever with the trademarks, it was not a free trademark. It would have been owned by that, either owned by that NPO or already the process of ceding to the ANC would have been completed.
Okay.
Right now, the trademark is owned by the ANC.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Prof. Musa Kulu, looking forward to further conversations with you sometime down the line, and thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse. Prof. Kulu is the founder of the Indonsa Yesizwe think tank. In fact, he says the ANC has a case, a solid case, but I think he sort of alluded to the fact they haven't presented that case pretty well. What do you make of that? There's lots of people want to talk to me. I know that. We'll take your calls and other things as well, all coming up soon. But the Senzo Biyiwa case needs your attention too.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha.
So, the biggest employment program on the continent, the Expanded Public Works Program, which is the EPWP, is celebrating 20 years. And President Cyril Ramaphosa will unveil Phase 5 of the rebranded EPWP, aimed at creating millions of new work opportunities for poor households. The Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Sihle Zikalala, along with the Eastern Cape stakeholders, invites all residents to follow the events on social media on the 24th of April. That's from 8 a.m. The Expanded Public Works Program, improving, changing people's lives and building better communities.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, I think it's a impactful day, if I can call it that, with regard to the Senzo Biyiwa murder trial. We have with us Pearl Magubani. Let's get to her, Pearl, of course, is the SABC News reporter. Appreciate your time, Pearl. Hi.
Good afternoon.
Pearl, do I have you there? Pearl, do I have you there? I'm just trying to see if I can connect with Pearl Magubani. Pearl, hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yes,
to the listeners.
Certainly, Kenya, you're right. I understand that there's been some dramatic developments today, and best we hear it from you.
Yes, today has been quite an eventful day with Advocate Thulani Ngomezulu interrogating Sergeant Mukhola on the stand. You know, one of the things he alleges is that none of the people that are in court right now were responsible for the murder of Senzo Biyiwa, and alleges that Longwe Twala, who was there in the house, who happens to be a boyfriend at the time of Zandile Khumalo, Kilikima's sister, is the one that fired a shot that killed Biyiwa. He also alleges that, you know, there was some sort of fight between Zandi and Longwe, and the gun accidentally went off. Well, this is not evidence that is before court or that the state has led. Ngomezulu says this is the base of the defense's case, and they've got witnesses that they're going to call, and that would come and talk about what allegedly transpired that fateful night. He's also accused the investigating team of covering up and saying that everything here is a cover-up. They cooked the evidence, you know, much to the irritation of investigating officer Mukhola, saying that she feels very insulted by those comments, as they've worked hard and they have it based on the investigations, they have the right people that allegedly murdered Senzo Meyiwa.
How was this received? I mean, clearly, I know the court doesn't pronounce on it, but there's a sense of audience in the court reaction. How was this received?
I mean, when the name of Longwe Twala was mentioned, there were slight oohs and giggles and people turning to each other just to say, did we hear correctly? Even the judge made a slight, giggle and sigh, saying that, this is not evidence before court. Why don't we know this? How the state objected to the mentioning of such evidence, saying that, there's no basis to it or nothing that would back it up. But the defense remains adamant that they do have witnesses, strong witnesses at that would come to attest to this. They also, mentioned the name of Senzo Meyiwa, who happens to be the brother of Senzo Meyiwa, who also, a statement from him was read, despite the fact that we could not see the name of the commissioning officer on the copy. But the defense says they're going to make an original copy that has that commissioning officer, and they need to be subpoenaed. Now, that statement now mentions a conversation that allegedly happened between Senzo Meyiwa and the Orlando Pirates chairperson, Irvin Khoza, who claims that, according to the statement, Khoza said that to Senzo, the person responsible for the death of Meyiwa was inside that house. There is no story of a robbery gone wrong or intruders that entered the house. However, the state got up, objecting to this, saying that Irvin Khoza has issued a statement with that regard, refuting the claims and distancing himself from that statement, and that statement has been furnished to the defense. So they don't know why the defense would bring it up in the open trial. I mean,
one could even say, why would Irvin Khoza issue this statement if he was nowhere near the house? It's like you and I issuing statements about we know certain things did not happen when we were like 1,000 kilometers away from it. We don't know because we don't know, isn't it?
Well, because there were rumors, a couple of rumors that went around before this matter came before court, and a couple of people were interviewed and witness statements and several statements were made. Now, these allegations were rumors that were flying around for the longest time as to who actually killed Senzo Meyiwa before these 5 suspects were brought into court. And his name came up in one of the conversations, saying that he called the family. There was another alleged phone call from one of the people inside the house, being Tumelo Madlala, who made a phone call to the wife of Senzo Meyiwa, Mandisa Mkhize, and other people that were in KZN who were family, alleging that, this gun went off accidentally because Longwe and Zandu were fighting. So I guess because so much has happened throughout the 2 dockets that are at play now, we do know that there's a certain docket that the state didn't go with that contains certain names, such as that the information on Longwe is contained in the second document. The statement mentioning Irvin Khoza's name is in the second document that is not part of the state's case.
Okay, just in 30 seconds, so now a name has been mentioned. Yes, the judge suggested, well, why was it not brought up as part of defense before? But now it has. What needs to happen next, certainly from the defense point of view, now that we have this name, Longwe Twala?
Well, the defense says that if they have to subpoena him, then they will do that. And they also plan to subpoena Kelly Khumalo. And if there's a need arises also, they can subpoena Irvin Khoza as well to respond to that statement. So they believe that there are names on the state's list that are not going to be called by the state. The state did confirm that Longwe Twala was part of the witness list. Kelly Khumalo was part of that list, but they've opted not to call them. They have their own reasons. We do know that they've been in conversations with investigating officers throughout, and when we have questions or not of all these other names, but the state has always maintained that they have a plan on what they're going to do post this trial based on the names that have emerged in court.
Always have a plan is what they all say. Thanks for your time, Pearl Magubane, and I'm sure we will talk to you again more than likely tomorrow. I'm sure of that. Pearl Magubane, SABC News reporter, reporting on, I could say, eyewitness on the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, and she's done that superbly on behalf of the SABC. By the way, did you follow that story yesterday? Oh, in fact, were you on that flight, the Sapphire flight, FA212? And you know what happened? The wheels came off or something along that. Were you on that flight? If so, I want to know. I want to hear from you. In fact, you can call in right away and I'll take your call. In the meantime, let's get the news from Eva Chipa.
Thanks, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. DNA positive identifies majority of the Limpopo bus crash victims, and Balula responds to judgment handed down in the MK trademark matter. Good afternoon, I'm Eva Chipa. Limpopo's Health MEC Popi Ramatuba says they have sent 3 samples of the bus crash victims who perished on the way to St. Ignazetsisi Moria to Pretoria for further DNA processing. Addressing the media in Mokopane, Ramatuba says that 42 of the 45 victims were positively identified through DNA and some through fingertips.
But what we can report to you is that out of the 72, only 3 samples were returned back by the laboratory for us to collect a new specimen. Because, as I've said, there has been a damage, both mechanical and thermal, from the heat and also from the injuries, which resulted it into very difficult, because even the mechanical damage does have an effect on the destruction of the DNA. Now the thermal becomes even worse.
ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula has accused the judge in the trademark case of focusing on politics rather than facts pertaining to the ownership of Umkhonto weSizwe. This after the High Court in Durban dismissed the ANC's case on the basis that the party did not contest the matter at the inception of the registration of the MK party. The ANC has indicated that it plans to appeal the judgment. Mbalula says the issuing of the trademark and Umkhonto weSizwe goes beyond an election.
And then we're arguing the issue of the trademark, not the politics that the judge is talking about. Judge is not a politician. He must get out of the politics. We have given him the facts. He should have dismissed us that you don't have an authority over this MK. These things are not the same. We are not arguing MK versus ANC. We're saying MK is ours. Here is the trademark. He doesn't refer to that in the judgment.
In other news, protesting Castile community members in Bushbuck Bridge in Mpumalanga have allegedly torched an emergency medical services vehicle belonging to the Provincial Department of Health. The protesters blockaded the R40 road in Castile earlier this morning over alleged lack of service delivery in the area. Provincial Police spokesperson Donald Ndluli.
We also have incidents where a truck was looted of some items, food items, and so far police are in the area. They have heightened their visibility and also to maintain order. However, the road is now cleared and the traffic is flowing. No one has been arrested. However, police are investigating a case of public violence as well as malicious damage to property.
Meanwhile, the MEC for Community Safety in Mpumalanga, Vusi Shongwe, has called on community members to refrain from violent acts when protesting. Community Safety spokesperson is Moete Musi.
Protesters must understand that while they have rights to express their views through protests, those rights cannot supersede the rights of others to move freely. He condemns in the strongest possible terms the closure of routes, particularly the R40, because it is an important route that links Mpumalanga and Limpopo. Businesses become severely affected by this trend of constant road closures, which also affects the livelihoods of many people.
Dr. Tlaleng Mofokeng, the UN Special Rapporteur, says the war in Gaza has been a war on the right to health and underlying determinants of health. Dr. Mofokeng, who was addressing the media at the UN in Geneva today, pointed to the healthcare infrastructure in Gaza that's been completely obliterated, as she warned that the right to health had been decimated at every level by the Israeli authorities.
This has been a war on the right to health from the beginning, as well as underlying determinants of health. The health system in Gaza has been completely obliterated, and the right to health has been decimated at every level. The conditions are incompatible with the realization of everyone to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. The attacks, the harassment, the killings of many of my own colleagues, the healthcare workers, the destructions of health facilities, and the destruction of humanitarian aid organizations continue to catapult to proportions yet to be fully quantified, if at all possible.
Recapping the top story at 4, Limpopo's Health MEC, Popi Ramathuba, says they have sent 3 samples of the bus crash victims who perished on the way to St. Agnes Setsisi Moria to Pretoria for further DNA processing. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Netball South Africa named squad under new coaching duo, and there are concerns over Klein's comeback, while Tinkler has admitted that Cape Town City's form is a major concern. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, there's a breakdown now in Pretoria. It's on the M1 South near Garsfontein Road, so traffic coming down from Linwood Road remains quite heavily backed up. Also a breakdown leaving Joburg, heading to Pretoria at New Road on the M1 going north, and that traffic parking back through Allendale Road. Durban's N2 South is starting to ease, coming through Umgela Road towards Spaghetti Junction through the roadworks. It has been a busy off-peak part of the day again today, but just here we are after 4 and things are starting to ease up. The Mike 1 Richmond Road was a nightmare this morning at Marion Hill. It's pretty heavily backed as you head that way from Pinetown again this afternoon. It's already busy, and we've got a couple of hours still to go yet of heavy traffic flow and volumes in that area. Truck overturning just on the eastern side of Isngelweni. If you're moving between Port Shepstone and Harding, factor in some queue time for the next few hours this afternoon. Working your way past that. And Cape Town, a crash on the N2 out of town at Meway in front of Khayelitsha. That is pushing a delay back beyond the airport runway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, keep the calls coming, keep the WhatsApps going in text or in voice note form. Keep the tweets going as well using the hashtag The National Pulse, and you can tag me, Ashraf Garda, and do tag SAFM Radio as well. Absolutely. And loving the diversity of comments we're getting from all around the country on a range of issues. Understandably, I think the issue of MK versus ANC maybe top of the agenda, and the issue of the Senzo Mayiwa trial as well, maybe top of the agenda. But there are other issues globally as well as locally that you may want to raise, and you can raise. And that point that I brought up earlier on, that not so much the actual vote, the roundtable conversations, the family conversations that you have around the election. I mean, tell me those stories. You know, what do you guys talk about? Who you vote for? Do you get like the younger person telling the older person, come on, you can't vote for this party anymore. Don't give them a chance, or whatever. Take off your top because this is just not a good party to support. You know, do you have those type of conversations? I'm talking less about who you're voting for. I'm interested in those conversations, right? Okay, so talking about conversations, I certainly saw this yesterday. Fly Safair. The wheels came off, so to speak. Well, that's not exactly true, but there certainly was an issue around a flight that was the flight FA212 from Johannesburg to Cape Town. And then there was a wheel damage and the implications thereof, because the flight, I believe, had to return to Johannesburg. So let's get further thoughts on this with an aviation analyst, Putejo Mojapele. I appreciate your time. And in fact, we're going to get to the guest right after this. I think we should be able to connect with the guest now, right? Okay, thanks for joining us on the National Pulse, Putejo.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to your listeners.
All right, what do we make? I mean, what should we as consumers, as people who would be commuters on planes, what should we make about what happened yesterday in the South African skies?
Look, Ashraf, this incident, it's actually not an incident. Let me just put it out there. It's not an incident.
Mm-hmm.
These things, they happen every single day around the world. And there is nothing...
I thought you were going to say they happen every... I thought you were going to say they happen every single day in South Africa, and I was like freaking out. But now, okay, you said every single day around the world. Continue.
Around the world, correct, yes. And secondly, there's nothing heroic that the crew has done yesterday. I mean, I'm one of those that believes that you can't praise the fish for swimming. They were doing what they are trained to do. There wasn't anything that would have threaten the lives of our passengers. Every single pilot who gets into the cockpit is competent enough to handle any situation that might not be in line with the operational procedure of the airplane. And therefore, what SAF airplane yesterday did was that they had a problem with the takeoff roll with one of the left tires on the landing gear. And according to the people that were on the ground, they've witnessed the collapse of the landing gear on the left-hand side, and therefore they alerted the ATC, and the ATC spoke to the crew.
And this was at takeoff, right? I mean, once
Yes,
the flight, they saw that immediately, right? Okay.
Yes, so they saw that. It was on a takeoff roll. They took off and they went around because they had loaded enough fuel that would take them all the way to Cape Town. So they were going to burn it. They were not able to land immediately because they needed to burn it off first. That's why they went to do following a pattern in around Paris to burn it off and then come back again to land safe. There was nothing really much that threatening the lives of our passengers. Like I said, all the pilots, after 6 months, there is a training that they go to make sure that they follow all the procedures, the procedures that needs to be followed.
Well, that's heartening to know. Like you're saying, they've just done their job, and that's the people we entrust our lives with, right? So I'm thinking about this. Why? Since they had to burn off fuel and then get as far as Paris and then come back to Joburg, I mean, that's like almost getting as far as Paris and moving on to Cape Town. Why couldn't the flight then just continue to Cape Town?
Well, the maintenance, firstly, they probably did not have adequate or enough people that can deal with the severity of the problem that they did not know it is. So it would have been safer because their MRO, maintenance facilities in Johannesburg. So it would have made more sense for them to go back to Johannesburg so that they can sort it out. If they were in Cape Town, it might have been a bit of an issue for them if the problem was major, because they may not be able to sort it out.
But isn't that a contradiction? I hear what you're saying earlier about them doing their job, and that's fantastic. But now you're saying that, in fact, if they had to go to Cape Town and the problem was severe, they would have not been adequately empowered to handle the problem if it was more severe. So why would that be the case for a major airport like Cape Town?
No, when I'm referring about it might be a problem for them to sort it out, I'm talking about engineers on the ground after landing, not necessarily the pilots. The pilots would land the plane anyway. There's no problem being able to perform that duties. In terms of the SAF Air maintenance, their maintenance center is in Johannesburg. It's not in Cape Town.
Okay, so it wasn't a safety issue then, in terms of where it landed.
It wasn't a safety issue. Okay. It was just the economic decision that SAF Air has made at that particular time to be able to deal with the problem in Johannesburg. You would have all the parts that you need in Johannesburg to get the airplane back onto the sky.
Okay.
Whereas when in Cape Town, you might have an issue with some of the things that you may not be able to get because it's a small operational area.
Okay, help us understand this. Why would an aircraft with damaged back wheels not be a safety issue in landing?
Look, there is a safety concern there. Yes, it's true. There's a safety concern. All what needs to happen is that during the preparation of the airplane to take off, there is, I'm sure all passengers would see, there's tons of people that walks around the airplane to make sure that it's safe to fly. So one of the things that might have happened on that takeoff roll, it might be a debris of another aircraft that lost a screw or something and got damaged the airplane on a takeoff roll. I don't think intentionally the professional people, engineers that worked on the plane would not check such things. It might be a pressure on the tire itself. There's so many things that will be investigated after that yesterday's incident. However, these things, they do happen time and again. Like I said, every now and again around the world, these things do happen, even on the larger planes like your 777s, 787s, they do happen. It's not anything new. It's just that here at home, we are so professional that we perfect every little thing. And when something like this happens, it becomes so serious that because we're not used to it, we always perfect everything. It becomes a major thing for us in our industry, which is good for us as South
And I take it, I've had chats with Poppy Khoza, the CEO of the Civil Aviation Authority in the past, and I take it that South Africa has one of the finest safety records in the world when it comes to aviation. Am I spot on in saying that?
Yes, we are. We are number one in Africa, and some other internationally, we are up there. Our standard is quite high. In fact, many countries like your China, some of the Middle East, even India, they do come here in South Africa. We train them here. They get trained here and they go and fly their airlines in their respective countries. So we are number one. That's why even last year we were appointed to chair the International Civil Aviation International Conference, where Mepo Pikhoza was president of the conference, and then that shows the confidence of the safety that aviation in South Africa has, and therefore whatever that happened yesterday was just, by the way, one of those incidents that we don't expect. However, they handled it as they were trained, and there was no incident. In fact, this plane did not declare full emergency when they landed. So that's why I'm saying they were just doing what they were trained to do.
And just lastly, what is the backup plan on the tarmac when they landed? Just to give us a picture of what had taken place. So it's not full emergency declared, but certainly it's a type of emergency. Others they would have gone to Cape Town, right? What was the plan then in terms of potential assistance to the aircraft and to the commuters? Yeah.
So the usual plan is that the airport facility, which is the AXA in this case, they will have the fire truck on the next to the runway in case there's any potential fire that would come out of after landing, because you cannot guarantee that there won't be a fire, particularly when you had a tire that was damaged already at that particular time. Therefore, you would then have the fire trucks to just make sure that there isn't a fire that is going to be igniting. Other than that, the passengers, in terms of the passengers, the crew will obviously inform the passengers to have a brace position, so that if there's any impact, at least there isn't much of the injuries that would be felt by the passengers on board, which is what has happened in this flight. They are trained to do that. Once the captain has pronounced that, then the crew would then implement that inside the plane, so that if there's any impact, there is no injuries that would happen. But overall, I think everybody have exercised their training, and it is exactly what everybody goes through every single after 6 months to refresh your skills around what you are doing, which is good for us.
Well, there you are, champions of safety. That's what we want to appreciate your time, Putejo Mojapele, who's an aviation analyst, and I'm glad to say that regarding that flight, FA212, where there was a real damage, it did no more than trend on social media, and that's really what it is. But by the way, if you were in the plane, or your family member was in that plane, how about you connecting with us? I want to hear from you, okay? So let me know. Give me a call, or you can WhatsApp if you want to go live. You can even text us. But it'll be great if we can talk to you about what you felt in that moment when the pilot says we're going to have to turn back. Something along that line. 086 000 2032. What was your pulses like, just so you know? WhatsApp in text or voice notes 0614 104 107.
Nna lebitso la ka ke Bonolo Moahlodi Bantswang ba re ke Miss B, Morara Miss T, Moahlodi, the Bonnie B Bonbon. And we'll be now playing Kena on Mondays at 4:30. The day has changed, but the time slot hasn't. So if you're interested in news that's happening with us kids and our peers around the world, don't forget to tune in. See you there.
So, a lady from Air Officini just turned 55, and although I'm still a spring chicken, there's a part of me that envies her, especially since she now qualifies for a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account with capital guaranteed. Talk about FOMI, huh, voice man?
If you mean FOMO, then definitely boss man. And she can earn up to 12.6% interest. Anyone over 55 can open theirs via the Nedbank Money app in less than 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Lindelani ladies are on a massive search for 3 points, but TS Galaxy ladies say they will travel back from eThekwini with a song of jubilance. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the queens of the beautiful game, Lindelani Ladies FC versus TS Galaxy Ladies FC on Sunday 28 April at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Formula One correspondent, Prince Ndiweni. What it's like to have the Chinese Grand Prix back on the calendar. But why has it taken 5 years to put it back effectively?
Yeah, I think during the aftermath of COVID-19, you also saw a bit of a rift in terms of the communication between Formula One and the promoters of the race in China. So there was difficulty in terms of securing the contract and all of those things and getting back to Shanghai circuit. But I think over time, things sort of got back together and got smooth again, and then China was able to negotiate and they back onto the Formula One game.
Top Sport on SAFM. Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
In fact, we got some some messages from people, WhatsApping us, and now we all know why Fikile Mbalula can never be a judge, says one person. Another, Zuma is ungrateful. Give me your name so I know, right? Zuma is ungrateful to the ANC that even though his legal battles are trying to assist him repent and become a better person, but instead he stole more money with his friends and damaged the image of the ANC, which today the current leadership is trying to clean. He's now doing worse stealing. The ANC factory, the ANC heritage, the MK, he's indeed a master scammer maybe, who should never be trusted by anybody. He's the worst factory fault ever produced in the history of our movement, modern day time. ANC in South Africa is not his dynasty. He must allow other leaders to lead. I wish you'd give me your name as well so we know exactly who we're talking about, but that's your opinion, and sort of put on your name at the end of your message so we've got that. Let's get further calls, okay? Chico is in Soweto. Hi, Chico.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good to connect with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to ask the NK party members, the whole membership of NK party regarding the Marikana massacre. Why Jacob Zuma, while he was still a president, he never showed sympathy to a black child then. That led to the death of 34 minors. They never raised 12.5 when they were demanding 12.5. He was the president that during that time. Why he never went to Marikana and say, please, we are willing to give you 12.5. Please go back to work. I'm willing as a president because I'm the person of the black child. I'm going to increase your 12.5. Stop this strike. It led to the death of 34 minors. I understand. He never done anything. But today is a darling. They are saying Jacob Zuma is a person of the black child, which was not the case when the 34 miners were brutally killed.
Okay, you've made your point. I got that. Okay, so you're saying there's selective memory around these issues and who to take to task. Thanks for that call. In fact, there's another. In fact, let me do this here. Let's see if we can take another quick call. No, in fact, we can't. Here's a story as part of our Global Watch. Right, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to reject any sanctions on the country's military. That's after reports that the U.S. plans to cut aid to 1 unit. It comes out of the Axios news site reported the U.S. would target Israel's Netza Yehuda battalion over alleged human rights violations in the occupied West Bank. To date, the U.S., Israel's main ally, has never suspended aid to an IDF unit before. The BBC News' Fidel King filed this report.
15 children are among the dead after an Israeli airstrike on the city of Rafah in southern Gaza on Sunday, where more than 1 million displaced Palestinians are sheltering. The health ministry in Gaza, which is run by Hamas, says more than 30,000 people have died since the start of the war in October. As Fergal Keane now reports, while the world worried about a wider war between Israel and Iran, in Gaza the suffering continued.
The eyes of the world were on a bigger drama, played out in the skies above Israel. But in Gaza, nothing changed. This was Rafah today after 15 children from the Abed al-Al family were killed in an airstrike.
Show me one man among them. They're all children and women. As you can see, my identity is completely erased with the deaths of my wife and children.
A pregnant woman, Sabrin al-Sakin, was among the dead. Her baby daughter was saved in an emergency operation. A child born to a mother she will never know. There is the story of everyday death, and the story of what follows for the families caught in the shadows of death. Nawara al-Najjar's husband, Abdul Rahman, was one of more than 70 civilians killed in an Israeli raid to rescue hostages in February. These were the couple's children in the aftermath of their father's death. We went back to see Nawara, now 8 months pregnant with her dead husband's child, and in grief, awaiting the arrival of a new life.
يعني يقول لي أنت من بعد حتضيعي حتنكسري. فعلا أنا ضعت وانكسرت.
Nawara's words, the elegy of a wife and mother for all that's been lost. In central Gaza, Israeli forces hunt Hamas. They're still launching attacks from tunnels and buildings. And as the war rages on, sickness and hunger haunt Gaza. These children in central Gaza are queuing for food to try and feed entire families. Many are weak, listless. The UN says less than half the amount of food needed is reaching the population.
We have been coming here for 6 months and we are completely dependent on the food charity. We come here to take food to eat and feed the other children.
In the north, where the threat of famine is most acute, Amjad Khanua, age 3, suffers from kidney disease, exacerbated by malnutrition. His 6-year-old brother Ahmad provides comfort for the youngster.
اتكلم معه دايما اخوه يقول لي ماما ليش من جدك بارش ليش من زي اخوه ليش بارش ليش ما بمشيش.
Suad has more than one sick child. Her older boy has suspected cancer and in war-ravaged Gaza can't get the proper treatment. Such are the days and lives of Gaza after 6 months of war. Fergal Keane, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Certainly gets you thinking, as you should, isn't it? We'll take more calls as well coming up later on, and sport coming up too, but let's get the news headlines now with Eva Chipper.
Thanks, Ashraf. In top stories for this hour, the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has heard a statement by Senzo Meyiwa's brother on what allegedly happened the night the Bafana Bafana captain was fatally shot. Despite the state objecting that it is hearsay evidence, the statement alleges that Sifiso Meyiwa had a conversation with the chairperson of Orlando Pirates, Irvin Khoza, who said no intruders entered the Kumalo house. In other news, Limpopo's Halde Misi Popira Matova says they've sent 3 samples of the bus crash victims who perished on the way to St. Ignace ZCC Moria to Pretoria for further DNA processing. Ramatuba says out of 72 samples which were collected, only 3 were not identifiable through DNA. And lastly, frustrated parents of learners attending Apex Primary School in the Nasia south of Soweto marched to the Gauteng Education MEC's office to hand over a memorandum this morning. The parents are complaining about the corruption in the school, with nepotism being amongst the issues raised in the memorandum. Greg Gous will be back at 5 with more news. For SFM News, good afternoon. I'm Eva Chipper.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Update from Pretoria. The M1 South remains busy today between Linwood Road and the R21. An earlier crash at Rigel and an earlier breakdown at Castleffontein are both being cleared. So it looks like just volume of traffic coming out of Pretoria today. Roadworks on the R21 leaving the airport area heading north between the Pomona and Benoni exit, causing quite a backlog. Southern parts of KZN, the N2 obstructed at Ismgulweni due to a truck on its side and a lost load of what appears to be flour. There will be a way to get through between Harding and that section. In Cape Town, a taxi on fire on the N2 outbound, pretty much opposite the airport runway. Most of the lanes are obstructed. It's a very heavy queue on the N2 out of town today, backlogging from Robert Sobukwe already. And Baden-Powell, we think it's roadworks out at Walter Sisulu Road causing delays both ways at the bottom of Khayelitsha. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapeli.
Right, to me, what's your big story?
Well, my big story this hour is netball. Netball South Africa has announced the first squad under newly appointed Spar Proteas coaches Jenny van Dijk and Zanele Mdodana. Now, the squad includes 8 overseas-based players, and 9 players in the squad were part of the 2023 Netball World Cup. This includes the likes of Carla Pretorius, Inemari Venter, and Kanyisa Chawane, amongst others. And the coaching duo's first assignment is in August, where the Spar Proteas face Malawi. Then in rugby, already sidelined for Munster's 2023-24 campaign, Springbok lock Jean Klein's knee injury is reportedly more severe than first thought, and it requires specialist treatment. Now, Klein underwent surgery in January, and it could possibly jeopardize his return for the better part of the international season. The 30-year-old was a key member of South Africa's World Cup winning squad last year and played off the bench in the final against the All Blacks in Paris. Now, the Boks will return to the field for the first time since the showpiece when they take on Wales at Twickenham on the 22nd of June. A thrilling start to a 14-test season that includes a July series against Ireland and the Republic before the Rugby Championship kicks off in August. Then in football, Cape Town City coach Eric Tinkler has admitted that their poor form in the final weeks of the DStv Premiership is a massive concern. Now, City are yet to win a match in 2024, and although Tinkler saw signs of improvement at the old Peter Mokaba Stadium, it was not enough, and he says that he's very well aware that he will be held responsible.
That's the nature of the beast, you know. Top goal scorer is because he's a good goal scorer. Top goal scorer is not scoring, it's because the coach is not getting him to score. That's the nature of the beast. Massive. Obviously it's a concern. we're a very ambitious club that want to achieve things, you know. Now, we've got to go back, reset, and next game against Arrows.
Still staying with football, Manchester United goalkeeper Andre Onana says that they are under no illusion that United have to improve significantly before facing their city rivals back at Wembley on the 25th of May in the FA Cup final. Manchester United blew a 3-0 lead and they needed last Gaspona to be overturned but scraped into the FA Cup final with a 4-2 penalty shootout win where they will once again meet Manchester City.
Well, it's a mixed feeling. Of course, the most important thing is the victory, but the way we won is a difficult situation because we had the game under control, and with some individual mistakes, we gave some goal away. But we will learn from our mistakes, and we have to continue working hard.
Well, here's Onana then speaking about what Ten Hag said to the players after the game.
The manager says a lot of things, after the games, but what happened in the dressing room stays in the dressing room. No, I don't want to be the one who bring things out.
He doesn't want to reveal what the manager said.
So he said nothing.
Yep. Yeah. But I do know that pressure is definitely mounting on Ten Hag. A lot of pressure.
Roy Keane's comments are telling. The former Man United captain, He said, Coventry City from the Championship played like a Premier League team, and Manchester United from the Premier League, and in brackets, one of the richest, biggest clubs in the world, played like a Championship team. From the Championship.
That is the truth also. That is unfortunately the truth, because how do you even let up on a 3-0 lead? How?
Never saw so many Man United fans on WhatsApp groups hoping the team loses 4-3 so the coach can be kicked out ASAP. And that rhymes, just by the way. Okay, move on.
Well, to round things up in terms of the business of sports, specifically for those who love betting. Have you ever bet?
I don't bet.
Okay.
I actually do not. No, I do not bet. Let's just say that.
Well, there's a research that has come out and it says that advertisers spend around 1.9 billion rand on promoting sports betting. But what caught my eye was the prevalence of sport betting, that now it has become a dangerous phenomenon and it has adverse effects on sports fans and the industry. Obviously, we always told that...
And then you still asked me if I bet and you said it's a dangerous phenomenon.
It is very dangerous. It is very dangerous. But there are people out there that bet, and I used to be one of them. The most alarming is the fact that obviously it leads to gambling addiction, and gambling addiction leads to a mental disorder.
And here's the bigger issue, the serious issue about, and I'm glad you're doing this business of sport feature, that how significant is the investment of betting companies in global sport today? You take them away, there's a massive void.
Absolutely. Like you look at, okay, I don't know if I can mention brands, but yeah, there's one particular brand that is coming to mind and it's doing the most out there. However, fact of the matter is, it's very dangerous.
Well, you don't have to mention brands, but I can tell you now, I do not know the way to bet, and I therefore do not want to know the way to bet.
Stay away from it. That's it from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I'm doing Kapele.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.6 FM in Bloemfontein.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
I saw something like South Africa's now regained its status as Africa's #1 economy. Remember, we lost that status a few years ago, so we're back at the top. What it means, we'll find out. But let's get to markets globally as well as locally with Paswane Mpatlele, who's the Senior Portfolio Manager at Makwe Fund Managers. Paswane, great chatting to you as always. Thanks for your time.
Afternoon, Ashraf and you, all your listeners.
Right, I understand you want to pick up on the resilience of cash bill. Tell me about that.
Yeah, cash bill. The guys experienced steady revenue growth for the of around 3% for the third quarter performance, and with some quite good stable transactional volume, and is reflective of that resilience and consistency in their performance, despite a tough trading environment where we've seen interest rates have been hammering consumers. And the contribution has to be all thanks down to those existing stores that they have already held, but also the new stores. We've seen them participate with with 1% gain to the revenue line. And it's indicative of that the good management team that is there executing on that expansionary strategy they've been on about. And although in this quarter they had not issued out any new stores, there's a number of stores still sitting around 321, but it's still paying. And what more to do with this revenue growth that has done so well was going down to that moderate selling inflation. It was sitting around about 2.4%, suggesting that the business has been doing very well to risk manage the pricing effectively, like balancing it between the profitability of the businesses and the affordability for consumers in this environment. And investors were very happy about this update, this quarterly update. The stock was up 1.5%.
Okay, great. And then you want to pick up on local and global markets, right?
Yeah, local and global markets there. We are looking at no further geopolitical tension that took over the weekend, and this has given some relief, really. Investors have been now having appetite to start the week to buy some of the risk assets, especially when they see the price of oil is below 90, firmly below 90. But the gains were generally kept because of the uncertainty that is still there from a monetary policy front. It's clear investors want to push back on interest rate cuts coming from June. Now they're looking at September would probably be the better start. That's if economic data continues to support, and that's why we're having bond yields that are continuously higher. Investors generally now looking at today, we're focused on the economic data that is going to come up ahead because we didn't have much coming in today, and such as the US quarterly GDP, its PC inflation later in the week, and close attention will be looked at into the quarter one earnings in the US, especially the tech sector that has been driving the growth. And today we're just seeing a day of wait and see on market direction. The US was up marginally, up 0.2 across the board, whether you look at S&P, the Nasdaq, or the Dow. And Europe was up with the FTSE up 1.7, DAX up 0.8, CAC up 0.3. Locally, we've also managed to see some gains, up 0.3, supported by our industrials up 2.4, and as the likes of Naspers and Process were up heavily at the back of the company gaming developments. Financials were up 1%. When coming into the commodity markets with those concerns on geopolitical front that have eased, gold has taken a pushback down 2.3% at $2,334 an ounce. Platinum was down 0.9 at $935. Oil was rather flat at $86.60 a barrel. Meanwhile, with inflation outpacing growth, dollar remains well supported and being strong against emerging market currencies. We're looking at the rand against the dollar that is at 19.18, rand against the euro 20.40, rand against the pound 23.62. Ashraf.
Okay, we'll talk again, I'm sure, tomorrow. Yeah?
Definitely.
Okay, perfect. There we are. Paswani Mpatlele, Senior Portfolio Manager at Makwe Fund Managers. Right, there's lots of people who want to talk about a range of issues. The MK ANC one amongst top of the list today. But, it's open to whatever it is you want to get off your chest. Let's get a call.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Right, let's get a call and see. We've got people from all around the country. Okay, I just want to connect with that. Okay, who do I have there? I'm trying to see. I've just lost my. I think it's Sam. It is Sam. Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, good talking to you, Sam. Hello.
Yes, I want to talk about our relationship here in connection with these elections.
So when you say your family, that's what I asked you to do. Right? I want good election stories about what happens with families. Go ahead. I'm looking forward to it, Sam. Tell me.
Yes, here we are divided, but it's not something bad. It's just something friendly. We share talks. We share our views. Our views are myself, my spouse, my daughter. We are decided to give our vote to Democratic Alliance. My sister-in-law is not yet decided. It's either she votes for EFF or for ANC.
Okay. So
yeah.
So anyway, you're divided. Are you still chummies?
Yes, for now we are divided, but for sure we're going to vote for Democratic Alliance due to reasons, because we talk, we don't fight, we talk. When we sit down, we see the DA as only the party that is diverse. There are Indians, there are coloreds, there are black community, there are white community.
Okay, but I mean, I'm less worried about the why. I'm saying you're voting differently, but you guys are chummies. You've got no issues, right, as family?
Okay, no, we've got no issues. We don't find any problem in our divisions. We believe everyone has got her views. It's a choice of an individual to vote for the political part of your choice.
Okay, great. Great call. Thank you for calling. Really interesting one indeed. And there's another one from Moku saying, in my family, everyone is free to make their own choice. No one dictates to others on who to vote for. We call it democracy. In fact, I think that would be the same to apply in my family, and they've got diverse views, I can assure you. But here's the question. I mean, are you in a situation, do you come from a family where, in fact, the opposite applies? There's huge pressure to toe the family line, that you have to toe the family line because the patriarch or the matriarch has voted in a certain way and you have to vote a certain way. Why? Because that's part of your honor. I want to know about it and whether there's a psychology around the pressure that you face around it. So really, I'm not too worried about who you're voting for, but I'm fascinated around the election family stories that emanate in the build-up to an election. In fact, there's such a great diverse opinions about many things, but you can certainly see we're getting into election season, and maybe that's understandable now. We're just over a month away. In fact, Freedom Day coming up pretty soon. Let me see if I can pick out another one of these SMSs, right? In fact, here's another person who's got a strong view about who they're going to vote for.
Good evening, Ashraf and the team. This is Nati from Cape Town in Delft. With me, man, Ashraf, I believe in the strong opposition. I don't care who's going to win the election. As long as there's a strong opposition to put the ruling party in their toes, then it's fine for me. So for now, since they are like it's a government of coalitions, my vote will be split between the DA and also the MK. Thank you.
What a combination, the DA and the MK, that's where your vote is. I mean, anybody else has votes that are as diverse as that? You know, like left-wing, right-wing, centre, all in one, because you've got like 3 votes. If you have that, then I certainly want to know. I don't think I'll go that route. I really don't think I'll go that route as diverse across the spectrum in making my choices. Keep them coming. I'll pick up another one. Somebody wants to talk about saying ANC is like Kaiser Chiefs. I always thought Man United were like Kaiser Chiefs because there's a similarity there, but that's them, right? I'll play that voice note in a few minutes' time. We want to stay with the issue of the ANC and MK because we just think it's that important, right? So let's get another take on that. If you remember, the ANC now confirming they will appeal the judgment of the High Court in Durban, which dismissed with costs the governing party's application to challenge the Umkhonto we Sizwe party's name and logo, right? So that's that. Now, what does this really mean, again, to get another take on this one with, let's speak to Lukhona Nguni, who's a political analyst. Lukhona, I appreciate your time. We finally chat on air. Hi.
Absolutely appreciate it, Ashraf, and good afternoon to you and to your listeners.
Thank you. Now, I mean, I don't know where to start. We could actually have a 1-hour conversation about this. We don't, of course, right? You know that.
Easily.
So we've spoken about the trademarks earlier, and you know, the ANC lost the case, but they can appeal.
Yeah.
Where do you want to zone in on this? Like, what for you is the big takeout so far?
Well, I suppose the big takeout in this whole saga, which I think Fikile Mbalula alluded to during the press briefing earlier today, is the fact that Jacob Zuma is still a member of the ANC. He's suspended, yes, but he's still a member. He's not expelled, and that's why Mbalula quipped and said, when we now hold an urgent meeting of the NEC to expel Zuma, then the narrative would be 1, 2, 3. But I think, they've postponed quite the inevitable, at least from the MK party universe. What we've been told is that they've amended their own constitution to submit it to the IEC to make Zuma the leader of MK party. And I do think that it spells quite a difficult place the ANC finds itself. I don't think it's just only a fight. I think at first it was an attempted fight to keep Zuma out of the ballot and the MK party out of the ballot. Mm-hmm. And given that we are now, about 37 days to the elections, I don't think that is anywhere near possible anymore. And I do think that the ANC needs to think of a different political strategy. I often say, Ashraf, in politics, legal warfare is not the best way to solve political problems.
Why is that the case?
Well, because, the legal route tends to also find a way to amplify the voice of your opponent. And I think that in terms of media coverage, the ANC's opposition to MK Party, whether it's on this trademark issue, whether it's on their registration with the IEC at the Electoral Court, has really given MK Party airtime that they wouldn't ordinarily have. And it has still not solved the political problem, which is that the ANC is being contested and contested heavily with the assistance of its former president.
Well, we spoke about airplanes early on and airplanes being grounded because of, bad tires, right? But here's the thing. There was a suggestion even a few weeks ago that, in fact, the longer the ANC contests with the MK in court, the longer that people like myself and you have to reflect it and give it airtime, the longer we actually provide a runway for a very, very new party in terms of brand awareness. And they've succeeded in doing just that, isn't it?
No, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. You give your opponent significant airtime than they would ordinarily get had you not taken certain strategic roles. Whether the ANC, one speaks to various people, and the ANC may well have a case, Ashraf, insofar as saying, look, Umkhonto weSizwe is our heritage, it's founded within us. But again, one of the questions I keep posing to some of the ANC ecosystem is, what would the ANC do if somebody founded a political party named Oliver Tambo? And so this idea about liberation heritage and struggle heritage being a preserve of one entity when the benefits have accrued to a mass population, as it has in South Africa, even to populations of those who were oppressors, how do you then navigate that space, and how do you intellectually property that resource without facing the idea that it's also in part a public good and available to as many people? And one of the things, Ashraf, I've found quite interesting, because I must admit to you and your listeners that I have been following MK Party quite keenly and closely, because I've just been intrigued at their usage of political language, political rhetoric, political propaganda. Is that some of the pull-up banners in some MK events have the MK logo, and they've got the face of Chrysalis, and they've got the face of Oliver Tambo.
Have they? Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And that's because the MK Party, Ashraf, is trying to locate itself within the ANC ecosystem. So what it is trying to do is that it says the ANC is not the problem, and therefore we've got to find a home that is as relatable as possible to the ANC without necessarily leaving the ANC. And then when the bad apples who are corrupting and impugning the image of the ANC are gone, we will return to the ANC, capture it and model it in our own vision.
I suppose, put it another way, they would say that this ANC is not the ANC of our founders, and therefore your examples of the images they're using that may go back a good few decades, in fact, is part of them being custodians of the real ANC, and they will come to the fore when it matters. Yeah, can you argue against that?
No, absolutely. Ashraf, they're not even saying this ANC. Because I know you are on Twitter as much as I am, because I see your traffic there.
Yeah.
Sometimes what trends on Twitter is ANC of Ramaphosa.
Yeah.
And that's what the MK universe has been able to do with its propaganda. It's not even about this ANC. It's about the ANC currently led by Ramaphosa is a problem. And in the research that I do, I actually conducted a focus group. And in the group were two previous ANC voters, One was now a disaffected ANC voter, so she was no longer keen to vote for the ANC. And as a result of that, she had abandoned the idea of voting for the ANC. But she says when MK surfaced, she felt that it would be amiss for the ANC to be taken out of power by the very people that had eroded the ANC in terms of the public eye and the voters. So she returned to become a voter for the ANC again. Across her was a gentleman who was saying he would vote for the MK, but he was quite clear to her to say, no, if Ramaphosa was to leave as president, I'd come back to the ANC and vote for the ANC. So I think that what has happened here, the MK phenomenon, is what I call now, Ashraf, an externalization of factionalism. So the factions are no longer playing themselves internally. The factions are playing themselves externally, and it might well be an attempt to embarrass Ramaphosa to say he is the first ANC president to lose an outright majority for the ANC at any
But in terms of the external ANC, and one can use the same example in terms of the EFF. You don't have to comment on them now, but I mean that's another example. Let's just then talk about this year, right? So at this point in time, with just over a month to the election, how much of a problem, and I say problem in inverted commas, how much of a problem is the MK party to the ANC's battle and strategy to hold on to a 50+1 majority no matter what?
Well, Ashraf, let me, in passing, also touch on the earlier point. So, MK does not position itself as a breakaway of the ANC. It positions itself as almost a core renewal and whatever project of the ANC, in the sense that, so you can't compare it with the mannerism of the PAC breaking away in the 1950s, of the UDM in 1996, of COPE in 2009, of the EFF in 2014. And this is why I'm saying I'm very captivated as a political scientist by MK, and I'm trying to study them quite properly. Not because I like Jacob Zuma, but because there's something intriguing in their repertoire or in terms of how they are doing politics. Now, how much of a threat are they? Politics is a game of numbers, Ashraf. Yeah. And the truth is that in KZN, I think the ANC is under severe pressure because of the emergence of MK, and I think this is why we are seeing such a high circulation of President Ramaphosa in KwaZulu-Natal. He was out in Amaudi, he was out, I think, somewhere around Stenga, attracting some Indian voters and so on. If you were to think, how many times has Ramaphosa been back to KwaZulu-Natal since the manifesto launch of the party in February? It's actually been it's what I call during an election season high circulation and high visibility. They are trying very hard to create high circulation and high visibility. And you will remember, Ashraf, the first rally that the MK party held in KwaZulu-Natal was in Ward 1 in eThekwini, KwaXimba. Since then, the ANC has attempted 2 mega community rallies in that community. And in the last one, last week, when Ramaphosa was leaving the community, we saw visuals of throngs of MK party members and supporters standing on the road and really chanting him away and singing songs.
Okay, wow.
So the point I'm making is that we can already detect in the ANC's election strategy that MK is a threat, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, and that's why they are creating high circulation for Ramaphosa.
Okay.
What I think lastly, sorry, Ashraf, the ANC is neglecting and have not been seeing is its visibility in Mpumalanga province, which I think is another interesting province to watch.
I mean, certainly pick up on that. Here's the last thing in 20 seconds, okay? With regard to the MK party, who is the master strategist of the MK party? Who is the special one?
I actually think there is a backroom of operators. We will soon find out after the elections as having been the master strategist.
Okay.
It's definitely not Jacob Zuma. It's not Kumalo. And I think there's an interesting backroom there that we must tap into after the election.
And since you're doing focus groups on just them, well, I certainly want to know all about it. Appreciate your time. Fascinating conversation with Lukona Mnguni, who's a political analyst. We'll put that up as a podcast ASAP. And in fact, to take that story further, we'll replay the voice notes of Fikile Mbalula in terms of his comments and get another comment on exactly what that really means around intellectual property and trademark. Let's get the news now. It's just gone 5 o'clock with Eva Chipa.
Mayiwa's brother testifies in murder trial, an Indian PM accused of Islamophobic comments. Good day to you. The High Court in Pretoria has heard a statement by Senzo Mayiwa's brother on what allegedly happened the night the Bafana Bafana star was shot and killed. 5 men are on trial for the 2014 murder. Despite the state objecting that it's hearsay evidence, the statement alleges that Safisa Mayiwa had a conversation with the chairperson of Orlando Pirates, Ivan Khoza, who said no intruders entered the Khumalo house. Defence counsel Tulani Mgomazulu tabled Safisa Mayiwa's statement through an interpreter.
Mr. Ivan Khoza told me in 2014 that the story that robbers entered the house and shot my brother was not true.
It's double hearsay, triple hearsay.
Senzo Mayiwa was not shot by intruders. There were no intruders that entered the house. Senzo was shot by mistake. There was a fight between Uzandi and her boyfriend.
Limpopo's health MEC Poperamatuba says they've sent 3 samples of the bus crash victims who were killed on their way to Saneganas, ZCC and Muria for further DNA processing in Pretoria. She says that 42 of the 45 victims were positively identified through DNA and some through fingerprints.
What we can report is that out of the 72, only 3 samples were returned back by the laboratory for us to collect a new specimen. Because, as I've said, there has been a damage, both mechanical and thermal, from the heat and also from the injuries, which resulted it into very difficult, because even the mechanical damage does have an effect on the destruction of the DNA. Now the thermal becomes even worse.
Police say the killing of Peter Mabuse will be treated as one of their top priority cases. The well-known comedian and DJ, properly known as Mashata, was shot and killed yesterday in Soshanguve, north of Pretoria. The investigation has been taken over by the Provincial Special Police Task Team. Major General Mbuso Khumalo elaborates.
Team of detectives, we are working together with crime intelligence to make sure that those that are responsible for the killing in this particular area are brought into books. They must be arrested. We are all out. We also have the additional human resources, the tracking team that is busy identifying these criminals.
Frustrated parents of learners attending the Apex Primary School in Malaysia, south of Johannesburg, have marched to the Gauteng Education MEC's office to hand over a memorandum. They're complaining about corruption in the school as well as overcrowding. One of the parents is Timbani Baloy.
The stairs to that school, it's 2,373. Only to find that they're only having one tap for the kids to go drink water there. So such things they are very disgraceful. So I'm not very happy. I'm not happy, and I'll never be happy with the situation.
Opposition parties in India have accused the Prime Minister Narendra Modi of making Islamophobic remarks at an election rally. He alleged that if the opposition Congress party was elected, it would distribute the nation's wealth to infiltrators and those who have many children, comments widely seen as referring to the Muslim community. The BBC's Anbarasan Etirajan reports.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's comments have caused widespread anger. The leader of the Congress party, Mallikarjun Kharge, described the remarks as panic-filled hate speech. In India, Muslims are often stereotyped as deliberately having many children, a claim experts say is based on prejudice. Hindu nationalists have long been accused of making divisive comments, especially against the minority Muslim population, although the governing BJP denies this allegation. Activists have urged the Election Commission to investigate whether Mr. Modi's remarks violate election guidelines for ministers.
Top story. The High Court in Pretoria has heard a statement by Senzo Mayiwa's brother on what allegedly happened the night the Bafana Bafana star was shot and killed. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Gos.
Making headlines this hour, Johnson still hopeful for a CAF spot despite another loss. Springboks to tackle Wales twice in 2024. And China calls swimmer doping reports fake news. More details at 5:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Stays fairly heavily backed up getting away from the airport area outside Tambo International on your way through to Tembisa, Clayville and Pretoria this afternoon. It's the roadworks that are still with us as we get into a new week between Pomona Road and the Benoni exit. Traffic backlogging towards the Trekker Road exit. Quite big backlogs there. Also, if you're airport bound, keep in mind there's roadworks at Clayville causing delays along the R21 South. Motorists getting out of Durban up to Pietermaritzburg. Some heavy traffic queues between Pavilion Mall and Paradise Valley split to Pinetown through the roadworks, and quite a big heavy delay between Linfield Park and a broken down truck at Ashburton. If you're driving Port Shepstone through to Harding over the next few hours, expect delays just on the eastern side of Isilgolwini. A big truck has overturned and crashed into a vehicle and a taxi today. Also a lost load of flour that needs to be recovered. Probably a few hours of disruption still there, and a major delay alert for motorists heading out of Cape Town today. A vehicle fire near the airport runway area. The backlog is effectively joining up with the normal queue that comes out of Cape Town on a daily basis anyway. So halfway out Nelson Mandela Boulevard is where you'll pick the queue up, and you'll stay in that right through until you get to that airport runway area. There's a lot of traffic disruption on Borchard's Quarry as well, with motorists either going north to getting out of the N2Q or coming south struggling to get into the N2Q. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
Mama Kitty, I heard Rand Water talking on the radio about how dangerous it is for people to encroach on their pipeline servitude.
Yes, those high-pressure Rand Water pipelines are under the ground distributing megalitres of water. When people build on top of the pipeline, Rand Water is unable to conduct maintenance on the pipeline, which has a negative impact on water provision. Pipelines can burst without warning. People could get seriously injured or worse.
Yes, people can die from a bursting pipe. That is why people need to understand that Rand Water servitude is where a Rand Water pipeline is located. If we build our houses or businesses on a Rand Water servitude, then we are encroaching on that servitude. They say if communities want to know whether they've encroached over servitudes, they should look for the Rand Water beacons.
The beacons indicate the presence of Rand Water pipelines under the ground. They're rectangular, made of concrete, are painted either white or blue, and have the Rand Water logo on them.
Let's take a walk around our area to see if there are any Rand Water beacons so that we can also tell the neighbors.
Rand Water, celebrating 120 years of existence and still finding new ways to provide clean, portable bulk water.
Getting more money into your pockets has never been this simple and exciting. With SABC's new Simple Watch and Win game show, you can get more Zaga in your pockets. Catch more Zaga every weekday on SABC 1 at 9 p.m. You could win your share of 50,000 Rand. All you have to do to win is give the correct answer for the day. Just dial star 120 star 33 to hash to register and play. The cost is R1.50 per minute. You could win big with more Zaga. Only on SABC 1.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, my conversation with Lukhona Mnguni is up as a podcast. You can check it up right away. In fact, you can also watch us visually on the streaming live line that comes through from SAFM Radio. So go to it on the X platform, on Twitter. Also the same with Facebook as well, but also on the SAFM Radio YouTube channel. Right now, there are many calls I need to take. There are also many WhatsApps, and I'm interested in the lighter WhatsApp around the issue of the family conversations that take place around the elections. I really want to know. I don't want to know which parties. You don't have to tell me. But I'm interested in the deliberations and whether, in fact, you have a democracy in terms of who you vote for, or, in fact, it's authoritarian and one person decrees that we shall be voting for Party X, whoever Party X may be. So if you have an opinion on that, do let me know. You also know that we chatted extensively about the ruling earlier today around the MK party, and the ANC is attempting in this case here to have the MK party, trademark removed, right? And then we've had Fikile Mbalula commenting about it. We've also had a chat about the implications of that with the guest that we had a few minutes ago. In fact, early on with Professor Musa Kulu, and we can have a podcast of that as well. And the conversation we had around the implications of MK with Lukhona Mnguni also pretty shortly. But I'll tell you what, we now have another issue of really understanding intellectual property and trademarks with regard to the MK party and the ANC, but maybe beyond that as well, right? So with me is Karen Kitchen, who's a trademark attorney from Breed & Camp IP Attorneys. Karen, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf. Thank you for having me this evening.
Thanks. Looking forward to learning lots around trademarks and the implications thereof. Well, I'll tell you what, before we get moving with that, let me play or replay the comments made by the Secretary General, the SG, of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, earlier today, after the court ruling effectively, at this point in time, allows them to appeal, but it does say at this point in time that the ANC does not have a case. He said this.
We are not comparing two logos, the ANC flag and MK. We are challenging the trademark that has been ceded to the ANC. It's ours. The judge does not compare the logos, does not address that issue. He addresses issues that were not ventilated in court. That's what he has done in terms of the judgment that he has given to you. Go and check. And those who are in court as well, go and check that. Instead, he agrees with our opponents that they made a cogent case about the fact that we wasted the time of court and the matter does not actually belong there. On the basis of that, punitive measures are actually granted to us. We will appeal all of those in terms of the court above, and we appreciate the fact that in the judgment, the issue that you are addressing, he has granted us the right to appeal. That's what he has done. So if you read the judgment and you understand, you say, are we going to appeal to the same court? We will decide, but he has granted us the right to appeal already. Meaning, I no longer want to deal with this matter, go and see for yourself somewhere else. I'm out of this, and so on. So the issue of the trademark and Umkhonto weSizwe goes beyond an election to us. The issue of the election and Umkhonto party of Jacob Zuma contesting, we left that issue in Mangaung. Even though we believed that we still had a strong case, we left it there. So Jacob Zuma and his party are on the ballot. So the issue that we contesting Mr. Zuma, we cannot contest a person who has made up his mind about where he wants to go to. He wants to form a party. He wants to bring the ANC below 50% for whatever political reasons. He has outlined that when he launched the party on the 16th of December. So we're very clear. How do you stand against a person who has made up his mind?
Okay, that's the voice of the SG of the ANC. So let's understand that, the implications thereof, but certainly also the broader issue around trademarks too, right? My guest, Karen Kitchen, with us already, right? So Karen, you heard those comments firstly. Let me ask you this first up then. What do you understand, or what should we understand when we talk about trademarks?
Yes, so a trademark is essentially, it can come in different forms. It can be in the form of a word or in the form of a logo. So if we look at the case in question, we are talking about the word mark Umkhonto weSizwe. We're talking about perhaps the acronym being MK, which is an acronym or an abbreviation rather of the word mark Umkhonto weSizwe. And then we're also looking at logo trademarks in the form of a stylized pictorial. So, for example, the warrior device in with regards to this specific case.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, carry on.
Yes. So when one has a brand and it comes in the form of perhaps certain word marks and certain logos and things like that, ideally they should aim to acquire, let's call it, the title deed into that trademark in the form of acquiring a registered trademark right. It's ideal to do that. And how does one go about that? One would typically do a search on the CIPC's trademarks register to first determine if that word or logo is available for use and registration in their particular category of interest, i.e., political activities, or, if we're talking about a general manufacturer of goods or goods or services, if they're coming up with a new name for a beverage, then they would look in the beverage class to see if their potential trademark or brand name is available for use and registration, or if it has been potentially already registered by, let's say, another third party. So best case scenario is to acquire a registered trademark right. There are also common law trademark rights, and this is where the issue gets a bit complex. And this is when a party acquires rights over time through use of that trademark. So that is when they don't actually secure the registered title deed, but they still acquire a common law right through use. Ideally, one should get the title deed because it aims to help that party evidence that they are the rightful owner in the form of getting a registration certificate, which proves their title in and to that trademark.
So if I look at some of the example of a trademark, and then once you have a trademark, you want to have protection so others can't use it. So let me look at a classic example of where I am right now. There's SAFM radio, right? And clearly we do not want to have another SAFM radio. So would SAFM radio be protected if you, for example, wishes to start a radio station and call it SAFM radio or not?
Yes, so the question would then be, A, does SAFM have a common law right of use that they've established through use? And I think we can quite kind of comfortably say the SAFM has acquired certain common law rights in its trademark SAFM through extensive use of that name over a period of time in relation to broadcasting and radio-related services and activities. It would assist the SAFM in litigating or enforcing those rights if it had also gone to the CIPC and filed a trademark application for SAFM in the category of goods or services that cover radio-related services and activities.
Okay,
so that then you would have all your ducks in a row, so to speak, that would assist you in enforcing those rights against any third parties that potentially wanted to ride on your coattails.
All right, so bottom line to that is that if you register the trademark, then you have protection. If you don't register the trademark, but you have common law rights through usage, just through absolute awareness of who uses that more than anybody else, then you should be okay. But first prize is still to register it, right? Now, let's go back. I'm thinking about the country South Africa, for example. I mean, who owns the rights to the name South Africa? If you don't know it, I don't know it either, okay? So, I mean, it's an interesting one, right? Let's move on to the ANC versus MK. So, in this case here, I mean, does the... And maybe we rehashing something that's been spoken about before, but what has the ANC registered in terms of the Umkhonto we Sizwe or MK, both the naming as well as the images? What have they done or not done that's got them into a vulnerable position right now?
Yes, so what unfortunately has transpired here is, the ANC, I think we could comfortably say, has established common law rights in the Umkhonto we Sizwe name and potentially the logo through use. Now, so they effectively have a common law right. Then where the issues get a little bit more complicated here is that they then I don't want to use the word scrambled, but they acquired a registered trademark right via another third party by way of a deed of assignment that I believe the effective date was during September 2023, but it was only recorded more recently on the CIPC's trademarks register. So the ANC have put forward a case to say that they have a registered trademark right that they have acquired from a third party, but they also have common law rights established through use over an extended period of time in and to the Umkhonto we Sizwe name and the logo being the warrior device.
And therefore, this issue of the MK wanting to use the name and the images as well, and the ANC effectively attempting to block that, does the ANC have a case?
Look, it's a very, very tricky one. I think certainly the ANC absolutely has a case where issues get a little bit complicated. And if we refer to the judgment that was handed down earlier, the complexity is also the issues were raised around the class, that the registered trademark that the ANC acquired was registered in class 41, which generally covered cultural activities and legacy project work and things like that, right? And the MK party put forward an argument to say that they are in the field of political activities, which are different to the services that are effectively covered by this registered trademark that the ANC acquired by virtue of this deed of assignment, with the effective date being September 2023. So what the ANC have also done is they've filed various other trademark applications that are still pending. They have covered political activities and services in various other categories, but those are not yet registered trademarks, right?
Okay. So they've done it after the event in terms of this play now by the MK party.
Exactly. So there are huge complexities in this case, and certainly I think what adds an additional element of complexity to this case is obviously one can argue, and I think this was argued before the court, that is the ANC actually the rightful owner of the common law rights in Umkhonto we Sizwe? Or is it a right or a name that various individuals or parties or entities could have rights in and to? And that also adds a whole extra kind of layer of complexity. And I think a comparison was made with the device of a closed fist, and how lots of parties use that. Can you say any one specific movement has rights in the closed fist device? And similarly, the MK party have argued the same on the with regard to the Umkhonto we Sizwe trademark.
Okay. Well, we know the ANC is taking this an appeal, so we'll see how that plays out. But here's the last thing in 30 seconds, which is the first point made by Fikile Mbulula. He said, we are not comparing logos, we are comparing trademarks. And I found that rather puzzling.
It is rather puzzling, and certainly with the judgment that's been handed down, there's complexities in that there are trademarks, but those are essentially in the form of logos or word marks. And they could be, as I said, common law or statutory trademark rights. And I think what the judge found here was that the ANC will not actually be using the registered trademark on the ballot papers. The mark that's in contention, they will be using their ANC branded logo, which is different to the MK's actual warrior device that they are using on the ballot box, on the ballot papers.
Okay, lots for us to think about. Karen Kitchen, trademark attorney from Breedenkamp IP Attorneys. Well, there you are. Every reason for you to really fully understand intellectual property, branding, who owns what, and how that brand, personal and business brands, plays out, not just in the personal domain, but in the public domain as well.
Freedom Month on SAFM. The month in which we had our first democratic election. 30 years ago. This Freedom Month, as we reflect on the progress made thus far, we continue to commemorate the selfless sacrifices made for our democracy and freedom. SAFM, leading the conversation. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, we certainly, and I've said this since I began hosting the show, The National Pulse, we want to pick up on the issues of innovation, all forms of innovation as part of our daily offering here on this show. So one of them is the issue of business ethics in online shopping with regards to Temu, TMU, if you're not familiar, founded just about 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, in fact. And that company now spent $2 billion on Facebook and Instagram advertising alone in the last year, right? So it's a top advertiser with Meta, but there are many issues around cybersecurity and ethics, and there's been lots of conversations about whether you should do business with them. Let's get the whole story about that with Daniel Novitskas, who's the co-founder and the chairman of SPACNA, which is a local digital innovation agency. Daniel, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to the chat.
Thank you. Right. So, firstly, what do you understand by this company that's really taking up lots of airtime space in terms of conversation?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. You know, I think for years now we've been saying globalization and this digital revolution, and I think this is one of the first times where we're really feeling the power of a hungry international company that has set their sights on South Africa and have gone full throttle in deciding that they want to capture our consumers. They're headquartered abroad, and yet they're spending crazy money. And already, hundreds of thousands of our consumers are flocking to spend on their site. So it's definitely a crazy sight to see.
I haven't yet been there, I must just tell you, and I should change that. Maybe I should. Yet every second person's WhatsApp says, don't deal with Temu. They A, B, C, they like this, they like that. What's the concerns here?
Yeah, look, I think that there's a few concerns both at a sort of an international level in terms of the ethical practices that are going on in order to keep the prices at the prices that we're seeing. And then there's the national concern. I understand that for consumers, we love the cheapest bargain, but then we also need to think about the sustainability of our spend, both, planetary-wise, but also in our local nation. We also need to be investing in our local economy. And, I really do only have the experience to speak from an innovation standpoint, but I am truly scared that with the rate of aggression and market spend and marketing that these foreign players are sort of going after our market with, will our companies be able to keep up? Are we digitalizing? Are we making sure that we're ready to stay relevant in our own country?
So when you say going after, the local business, are these foreign companies playing in our space? We understand that with no borders, and that's what digital allows them to do, right? But the physical goods that they're selling in big quantities, they all are located abroad, so in fact they need to be imported, and we're not making the same purchase choice in a made in South Africa product. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think that's one element of it. I think the other element, though, is access to consumers and the data around sort of consumer spending. You mentioned at the start of the conversation that last year alone they spent $2 billion on Meta, just as one of the advertising platforms just last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, can our businesses really compete with a company that's spending that much money to acquire data points to really be able to target, and I even want to say manipulate our consumers into spending more with them? Look, my hope is yes, we will be able to compete, but to not be concerned, to not talk about it, I think that's the danger.
Maybe just the last thing before we get to news. How then, we as consumers, what sort of choices do we make? How do we make these choices? What I'm saying is, I need to buy whatever. I need to buy a mobile phone, and somebody online like from Temu offers me something that's what I like and at a good price. Should I include in that purchase the ethics, the morality, and the implications on the national GDP or not?
Yeah, Yeah, I think it's a difficult one to answer. You know, we are in a country where our consumers are so cost conscious, and obviously for proper reasons. But at the same time, it's so important to invest in our local economy, in the job creation here, in getting that sort of money circulating through our economy. And so, you know, while I understand the need to buy something cheaper, I think to ignore the morality, ethics, sustainability around it, there's a danger to that. And I think that, you know, within the world today, we are starting to see social pressure from sort of consumers in all walks of life really starting to pressure us to think about how are we spending, where are we spending, and what are we buying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've certainly seen that with the issues around the outbreak around Israel and Palestine and the reaction to boycott major companies, something we probably need to talk about some other time. Daniel Novichkas, appreciate your time, co-founder, chairman of SPECNO, a local digital innovation agency. Well, there you are. Do you make a choice around ethical choices about the implications of your purchase, or you just go for best price, finish, and cloth? Let's get the news headlines now with Greg.
Thank you, Ashraf. A quick look at those headlines. A legal expert says the prospects of the ANC succeeding to appeal the trademark judgment are low. The High Court in Pretoria has heard a statement by Senzo Maiwa's brother on what allegedly happened the night the Bafana Bafana star was shot and killed. And the British Prime Minister's pledged that one-way flights sending some asylum seekers to Rwanda will set off in the next 10 to 12 weeks. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Fairly busy through Midrand now. A crash on the M1 North before Allendale. So there's a queue that's starting to build up into Buccleuch interchange. That's going out of Joburg into Midrand. And if you are coming through Midrand towards Joburg, there's a breakdown at Buccleuch, and that's a delay from Allendale Road. So pretty heavily back both sides of the N1 highway this afternoon. Over in Durban, if you're leaving town out towards Point out and on towards Pietermaritzburg, two queues, one through the roadworks and a breakdown around the Paradise Valley split. So round about Pavilion Malls where you'll pick up that queue towards Pinetown, and then a breakdown at Ashburton, a stationary truck and a heavy queue back as far as Linfield Park. Port Shepstone through to Harding, that's going to be a problem for a bit longer yet, probably into this evening. An overturned truck just the eastern side of Isn't-Golweni, so expect some queuing pressure there. And Cape Town, the N2 outbound remains challenging today. There's a breakdown on the N2 before the M5, so that's causing a big backlog. Nelson Mandela Boulevard through Hospital Bend and out towards the M5 exit. And then after that, it's really heavy from sort of Rappenberg Road, Pinelands area, all the way through to the R300 interchange at Khayelitsha, and that's due to an earlier vehicle fire incident, which has, in the last few minutes, been cleared. The traffic will take some time to normalise. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
So an hour ago, the top story was netball. What's it now?
Well, let me remind everyone that 95 days to go till the Paris Olympics, and you can still catch the live action on SABC Sport from the 26th of July until the 11th of August. And we're looking forward to all the action that is going to happen over there, and obviously hoping that Team South Africa do exceptionally well. Then in football, Kaizer Chiefs interim coach Kevin Johnson says that he's not giving up on finishing in the top four despite recording their fourth defeat in 5 games in the DStv Premiership this weekend.
I did tell people Chiefs are like Man United, but carry on.
Well, Amakosi find themselves 10th in the log, and they are in danger of finishing outside the top 8.
I never said goodbye until the last game. So we as a team, we as a technical team, we have to push as hard as we can. So for us, that's not out of our way. The players know that. And it's one major pressure bubble that we are in now, and we have to break the pressure bubble somewhere.
Well, Chiefs are currently in their worst state in years, and they're about to go another season without a trophy and even missing out on the top 8. And when asked how the players are doing mentally, Johnson says that they're not psychologists and they can't tell if players are struggling mentally. However, he lamented the issue of finishing chances.
In some moments, we're all not psychologists. We just technical coaches, football coaches. We're not psychologists. We have to look at them back again and understand why why is this happening, what's the combinations, why they're not having fun. And you try and do that in your training, whereby you create many free goal scoring opportunities, whereby they can feel what it is like. But it's still not happening. We gotta go. Maybe I need to take them for gun shooting or something like that, and they'll be better. But at the moment, we have to dig deep in our own technical stuff to see what we can do in order to make the finishing a finished product. But we have to go back and work.
What did you say? Once you take them
gun shooting.
I did hear that. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Listen, hopefully something gives, because, a lot of Kaizer Chiefs fans are not happy with how the team is playing currently, and we'll get to have to wait and see if they'll finish in that top 8. In Nepal have announced the first squad under newly appointed SPAR Proteas coaches Jenny van Dijk and Zanele Mdodana. Now, the squad includes 8 overseas-based players, and 9 players in the squad were part of the 2023 Netball World Cup. It includes the likes of Carla Pretorius, Inamari Venter, and Kanyisa Chawani, amongst others. And the coaching duo's first assignment is in August, where the SPAR Proteas face Malawi. In rugby, the Springboks have confirmed year-end tests against Scotland, England and Wales to complete their 2024 season. The test against England at Twickenham on the 16th of November had already been confirmed at an earlier date, while 2 more year-end tests against Scotland and Wales were added to the roster. Now, the world champions will open their year-end tour against Scotland in Edinburgh on the 10th of November and conclude the season against Wales in Cardiff on the 23rd of November. And then the Boks will face the Welsh at Twickenham to open their season on the 22nd of June. And in tennis, Rafa Nadal will play in the Lever Cup later this year. The 37-year-old has struggled with injuries for the last 2 years and said that he expects to retire after the 2024 season. This will be the 22 times Grand Slam champion's 4th appearance at the 3-day team tournament, which pits 6 top men's players from Europe against 6 of their counterparts from the rest of the world. And just to end things off, Beijing have called reports about 23 Chinese swimmers testing positive for a banned substance ahead of the Tokyo Olympics in 2021 fake news. Now, the sport was rocked at the weekend by revelations that the swimmers tested positive for a prescription heart drug that is banned in athletes because it can enhance performance. Before the Games 3 years ago, the swimmers were allowed to compete in Tokyo after world governing bodies accepted China's findings that they had ingested it unwittingly from food during competition in late 2020 and early 2021, and several went on to win medals, including gold, and many are in line to compete at the Paris Olympics this summer. Quite interesting. Well, with that said, it's a wrap from my side.
Let me just tell you, by the way, I mean, you'd be listening to this conversation. You know that, you would know Kes Naidu from G Sport and the role they've played, right,
Yes.
in promoting women's sport. But as part of the 30-year celebration of freedom in our country, they've put together a campaign celebrating the top women's sporting moments of 1994, so 30 years ago. But the beauty part is they have their own opinions, but they're really asking you and I and everybody listening to us to say, come on, you help us choose. So we're going to find out about that coming up around 10 to 6. Do not miss that.
Nice.
I wonder what your thoughts are on the top moments of women in sport in 1994. Google it and you'll know.
With that said, it's a wrap from my side for SAFM Sport. Ke nna Tumeng Kgapele, Modimo ke yo.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.5 FM in Tabazimbi.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
So I wonder what are the big economic news stories of the day. Well, guessing is over. Here's Jimmy Moyaha from MoneyWeb, and he presents the MoneyWeb Market Update. Jimmy, what do you have?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to me. Good afternoon to the listeners. Before I give you what's coming up on the show, I thought I might just tell you, I have a friend who I won't name, but he knows that I'm talking about him, who is both a Man United and a Kaizer Chiefs fan at the same time. That must be very traumatizing to go through that. But in more positive news, slightly more positive news, we've got the updates from Nedbank.
But wait. Before Nedbank, but hold it.
Off-boarded almost 200 clients due to reputational risk concerns. So I thought, why not take a look at the banking sector, take a look at what's happening in that space. We're going to speak to a banking specialist around those sorts of decisions like the ones made by the South African Revenue Services to start targeting what they are considering professional enablers. So if you remember, there was an incident with SASFIN as well for supposedly enabling transactions that were transactions they shouldn't have. So we're going to dig into that, unpack what that means for the banking world, what that means for you and I as banking clients as well. And then we're going to look at the city of Johannesburg. They announced that they're introducing municipal discounts for struggling residents. It's a very interesting statement, very interestingly timed as well. It looks as though the discounts are effective until the end of May. So we're going to speak to the city of Joburg and try and unpack what the discounts look like, what it means for municipality profitability and all those other things as well. And then there was a court ruling last week that affects those that have criminal records. So employees or potential employees that are applying for jobs that have a criminal record. There was a landmark ruling last week that potentially paves the way for us to now consider those criminal records differently and no longer apply a blanket approach to saying you've got a criminal record, therefore you can't be employed by this particular company or any company for that matter. So we're going to dig into that and understand what it means for business practices and for hiring and recruitment. And then because it is Monday, we've got our personal finance segment, and today we are chatting to a specialist around things you need to know before taking on credit. So taking on new credit, it doesn't matter which credit form you are looking at. We're going to dig into that and try and help unpack that. And then before we get to that, though, the markets have had quite an interesting day, except if you are on the wrong side of the markets. And Henko Kreer has been keeping an eye on those markets for us. He joins me now to do a quick summary of those markets. Good afternoon, Henko. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. The Rand still above 19 Rand. But if you were a resource counter holder, it wasn't a good day for you.
Absolutely, Jimmy. Hello to you and to Ashraf and to me. Good evening to all the listeners. Yeah, and look, it was a pretty good day so far in the US, because there the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq trading about 0.3% stronger, and even a better day on European stocks, where the FTSE 100 in London finished today 1.6% stronger, the DAX 0.6% up, and the CAC 40 gained 0.2%. And then the JSE was quite mixed today. Like you said, that resources index, the JSE overall, the all-share index, finished today 0.3% up, and that was at a higher level of 73,551 points. But then, like you mentioned, that resources index took quite a beating today, because it lost 3.7% today. At some stage, it was even 4% weaker. But then the industrial index came back and tried to counter this by finishing the day 2.5% stronger. And then that financial index tried to assist a little bit by finishing 0.8% up. And let's see which of the real big companies on the JSE had a terrific day. And those were Naspers and Prosus. Naspers finished the day 5.4% up, and Prosus 4.6% stronger. There's also First Rand, AB InBev, and British American Tobacco. They each gained 1.5%. But then Anglo lost 2.6% today, and Goldfields 5.2% weaker at the end of the day. And here's some more reasons as to why that resources index took quite such a knock today. Amplats lost 6.5%. Anglo Gold 6% down. DRD Gold 5.5% weaker. Implats 5.2% down. Harmony and Sibanye Stillwater, they each lost 4.5%. And then Kumba and Northam each finished today 3.8% weaker. Back to some good news. Some companies that have had a better day. Sun International, which gained 4%. The Life Healthcare Group and Truworths each gained 3%. And then Spar, also nice to see that it gained 2.9% today. On the commodities market, the price of commodities down today and quite under pressure. Now the price of gold, $2,340 an ounce. Silver is down to $27.30. Platinum, $920. And palladium, $1,020 an ounce. The price of Brent crude also weaker and down, which is the only commodity I like to see seeing going down, and that's now trading at $86.40 a barrel. Then the rand still trading similar to the level it was on Friday and over the weekend, now sitting at 19 rand 15 to the US dollar, then 23 rand 60 to the pound, 20 rand 40 to the euro, and 12 rand 30 to the Australian dollar. Bitcoin still maintaining its level, and it's now trading at $66,200. That is 1.3 million rand. So yes, Jimmy, you're absolutely right. If you were heavily invested in commodities and in the mining companies specifically, then you definitely had a blue Monday.
Blue Monday for some, green Monday for others. It's still very, very early in the week. We will come back to these and other stories in a little while. But for now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
And Jimmy, listen, you and your chummy, your Kaizer Chiefs Man United chummy, do some homework, you that is, right? And reply to the business case to my comment that the parallels between Kaizer Chiefs and Man United are pretty obvious. But don't answer it now. Do some homework and we'll take it from there.
I will do so.
All right. I think they are. I mean, you can tell me, right? Absolutely. Okay, let's get into other things. Of course, that's Jimmy Moyaha from the MoneyWeb Market Update, right? We're going to pick out some of your calls. In fact, I'll see if I can get to them right away. No, we'll do that right after this.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Lindelani ladies are on a massive search for 3 points, but TS Galaxy ladies say they will travel back from eThekwini with a song of jubilance. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the queens of the beautiful game, Lindelani Ladies FC versus TS Galaxy Ladies FC, on Sunday 28 April at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Made a name for herself as the wicketkeeper in a successful Proteas women's team. Sinalo Jafta, Karabo Meso, of course, taking over from you and putting the gloves on, and a rare appearance for her. What do you make of her rise up the ranks?
I've actually been following her journey since the Under-19 World Cup, and I think she's got a really bright future ahead of her. She asks a lot of questions, as she should. It kind of puts me on my toes because she'll ask what scenarios. And I mean, that's the beauty of having a young and upcoming keeper. But obviously, she knows that it's going to take time, and I just wish her everything of the best of her career because I think she's a fantastic player.
Top Sport on SAFM. Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
This is the National Pulse, right? So Brian Mabaya is saying in case of trademarks, I've seen similarities of an H in Hyundai and Honda, and also similarities in football teams in Madrid, Spain, Italy, in Milan. Okay, there you are. Let's get some calls, right? We go to the Western Cape now. Solomon, hi.
Good evening or good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Good afternoon. Go ahead, yeah?
Yeah, from where I'm standing, I think the ANC is justified to approach the courts for relief. Because, as you can see, MK Party does not have any identification. All it uses are ANC symbols, policies, and everything else. And as a party, it is, in as far as I'm concerned, quite unethical that you can go use somebody's identity and other pieces of identification for your own party and move to the terrain and say, I'm contesting space against the party from which you have taken these symbols. So the ANC is justified because we're a constitutional democracy. The courts must give their opinion in as to does the ANC have the right to the trademark of MK or what?
Yeah.
But I think our democracy is still faced with a lot of challenges. I wonder why South Africans take it easy that a political party runs for an election without any constitution, no manifesto. Nobody knows what it stands for. All it has is just a euphoria that it boasts President Zuma, who was once at the helm of the state, and a person who has committed some fundamental errors of judgment. And then they are running. After the elections, South Africans will be standing helpless because they would never know what to expect from the party they voted, which never said it represents anything out of the aspirations that
well,
they
well,
have.
it does ask the question then, why would they vote for them? You may not have an answer, but it does ask that question. If there's no manifesto, there's no plan, there's just images of people and there's lots of euphoria, why do people vote for them? Thanks for that call. We're going to move on just because time is against us. Some may say, well, all is fair in politics, isn't it? Les, go ahead. Hi, Les.
Hi, Ashraf, how are you?
Yeah, good talking to you. Thanks for joining us here.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, first of all, I want to talk about the coalition agreement. If the coalition agreement here in South Africa is not amended to the South African Constitution, there's nothing that can go right here in this country. The reason why I'm saying is most of the political parties that has been created and that are created right now, they are willing to see the ANC to get below 50% or 40%. Once the ANC get that 50% or 40%, those small parties, they get an advantage to make a coalition with ANC, whereas their decision to create the political party was to stop corruption that was already being done by ANC. So we see many parties like good parties from the Patricia Dilele. We see many parties like Gaten McKinsey and the PA, UDM, and some other political parties that divert from their coalition agreement and go and vote with ANC. As much as we don't amend the constitution here in South Africa, where the coalition agreement should be amended.
But I hear you, but I can't see why a coalition agreement has to align to a constitution. That's a coalition agreement is an agreement between people who clearly the big problem is none of them, they're paying the price for not getting 50+1. That's why we have coalitions, and a coalition agreement really is an agreement thrashed out between people who differ with each other to say how they're simply going to work together. Thanks for that call. Much appreciated. In fact, before we get to Kes Naidu, here's another voice note that I said I'll play earlier because someone's saying the ANC is the same as Kaiser Chiefs. Let's hear that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf Garda. Every political party has a history. Let's put an example of a Kaiser Chiefs team. It has underperformed. I still support it. It has underperformed. There are still people who support the team because of history. Same applies to politics. So let's put that example in terms of this political manifesto run by Prochaklan. Thank you.
Well, there you are. I think there's a difference, okay? If you're a follower of a sports team and now you're long suffering, there's an emotional blind connection that gets you to support them, even when they go through, great ties and then absolute lows, right? A political party that impacts upon the way you run your life and the way what's best for the entire country, not just for you. I think that's a bit different. But I do understand the comparison that you're making between the ANC and Kaiser Chiefs. Let's talk about other things now around women in sport and their own achievements. You know that, of course, Saturday would be, 30 years for democracy, that glorious day we voted on the 27th of April, 1994. And there's so many different angles I think one can talk about and reflect in the build-up to that day and beyond that. South Africa now 30 years a democracy. Certainly enjoying what G Sport for girls are doing, because they have quite a unique take on what they want to connect with between now and 1994. So with me is Kes Naidu, commentator. We know her once of SAFM, by the way, but also the founder of G Sport for Girls. Kes, good chatting to you for the first time since I'm back on air. Hi.
Lovely to chat to you on the show, and congratulations again, Ashraf.
Much appreciated. Right, so #Freedom in Sport, understand, leads us down that gateway to tell us so much more about what you're planning to do. Go ahead and tell me.
Ashraf, I think it's so important to honor the journey. And I think with all the gold medals and all the bright new stars that are coming up now, it was important for us as an initiative that is 18 years old, so 18 years of the 30 years, to reflect on the journey by retelling the stories of those that have achieved first since the 1994 and democracy, unity, whatever you want to call it. And so we've told 21 stories to date since the 1st of April. And today we put out a call to the public to help us choose the greatest moment in women's sports in the last 30 years. And I think it's important because the new generation have grabbed onto this initiative because they finally can see their heroes and see what's to come for them.
Well, I think age is very important. And I chatted to Tumi, who's the anchor for our sport on our show, and made the point that this issue of women and men in terms of equality of sponsorship and branding, and something you know very much about, right, happens when we celebrate women's excellence equally to male excellence in sport, so that we naturally just support sport. Whoever is winning doesn't matter. We see male and female as one. So therefore, I mean, you've got a whole list of women already in your 21 that are like, wow, look at what they've done over the years, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible. So you always think Penny Haynes, right? Double Olympic gold, Atlanta 1996. We'll never forget that moment. But there have been many moments after that. And in this journey that we've reflected on, we've realized just how sentimental we are as a nation as well. I think unity really brought us together. Sport has brought us together. And this campaign has taken off so wildly that on Facebook, we've topped 1.1 million reach in the last month. And generally, the big moving topics and the big posts that have done well are from the Freedom in Sports series. So it's taught us a lot about the importance of reflecting on the journey and not always just staying in the moment and seeing what's hot and what's new.
And I understand now, so you've got your 21, but in fact what you're telling the public is you want what? More votes, more recognition of people that maybe you guys have missed out on, right?
Yeah, so we've told 21, and by the end of April we'll tell 30 stories. We've been approached already to put out a book on the Freedom in Sports series, so we're so delighted that people get it. But maybe, as you say, we haven't thought about something. So the G Sport newsroom has said, tag us across social media at G Sport for Girls. Tell us what you think has stood out. And so we can't wait for Saturday. We're like little kids at the moment going, what is going to make us get excited again? Because last year was the year of women's sport. It was World Cup year. There was a lot to be excited about. And someone put a question to me the other day saying, after the year of women's sport, what is the big thing for women's sport? And the answer was simple. It was consistency. The more consistent we are, the easier it is to close the gap with men's sport and level the playing field. Because as you said, sponsorship, corporate support, that's what it's about. And until we acknowledge the journey and those that paved the way, I don't think we can sustainably move forward.
Now, your organization that you founded, G Sport, I mean, how long does that exist now?
On the 1st of August, it will be 18 years, Ashraf.
It's incredible. And I know that, I mean, it was not an overnight success. I mean, there's been a struggle that perhaps your organization mirrors the struggles of women in sport who are excellent at what they do, but the sponsorship and brand leverage is not equal to a male doing the same amount of work, right? Which then brings me to the fundamental issue. Besides this campaign, right, and what you do, how then do we absolutely amplify women in sport so that it becomes the most natural thing that we talk about every single day, and we don't have to even use the category women in sport. We just talk about women who just happen to have achieved.
Firstly, we throw a whole lot of funding at women in sport and say, let's forget the problems we have. And then we ask the public, can you see the successes of women's sport in the same light as you see men's sport? It's a change in mindset. We've been at it for 18 years, and it sounds like a long time, but I think we have a long way to go. We're currently on a brand tour ahead of our 20th birthday in 2026. And it's good to see the journey from other people's eyes as well. And this time to talk to you about it, I think it's great airtime for women's sport and for the Freedom in Sports series. So I appreciate it.
Well, you know, we're going to tweet about this. We're going to set up we'll have a podcast up pretty shortly, and feel free to repost it and tag us, tag myself, tag SFM Radio, and all other combinations on various platforms. We'll share that. But here's the thing: what's the go-to place? I want to direct people to it. You know, social media platforms. Give me names. Give me hashtags.
at G Sports for Girls across social media. And if you're someone who loves deep dive, gsports.co.za. We just tell the most incredible, inspirational stories of women in sport that represent the nation. And so 30 years of freedom in sport means so much to us, Ashraf.
And the hashtag you're using?
Hashtag freedom in sport.
Freedom in sport, from someone who I can say emphatically is a champion South African in terms of the work that you've done in growing women in sport and the impact that you make around the country. Keznado, great chatting to you as always. Thanks so much for your time. Founder of G Sport for Girls. By the way, lots of people to thank today on the team, some old, some new. Kagiso, Kamogelo, Tebogo, Vusani, and I don't know why he's got his name last, Temba Dlamini, but thanks to everyone that makes up this team, what I call a champion team here on the National Pulse. We'll do it again tomorrow at 6 o'clock. It's time for the news. Here's Greg.
Thank you, Ashraf. Analyst speaks on ANC's MK trademark case, and Mayiwa's brother testifies in murder trial. Good evening to you. We begin with election news. Legal expert Kumisi Khanare says prospects of the ANC succeeding in its appeal of the trademark judgment are low. This is the party's indicated that it plans to appeal the judgment of the High Court in Durban, which dismissed with costs its case against the Umkhonto weSizwe party. The ANC accused the MK party of violating the Trademarks Act by using a name and logo similar to that of the disbanded Umkhonto weSizwe military wing. Khanare elaborates.
Prospects are low, especially when we have recourse to what has been, divulged already in terms of evidence, facts, and I mean, the big issue here is there is no certificate that relates to the Umkhonto weSizwe being owned by the ANC. At least, yes, we know it's a fact now that there is a process underway which seeks to then produce a certificate at the end of it, and it only started last year, September. Getting certificates will not be something that happens anytime soon.
The High Court in Pretoria has heard a statement by Senzo Mayiwa's brother on what allegedly happened the night the Bafana Bafana star was shot and killed. 5 men are on trial for the 2014 murder. Despite the state objecting that it's hearsay evidence, the statement alleges that Sifiso Mayiwa had a conversation with the chair